weekly on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 12 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of August, and this is the weekend on GB News. We have got an amazing show coming up for you, but I'm going to warn you, some of it is going to be very hard listening and watching. We are starting with the main story. A catalogue of failures across Britain's criminal justice system left a serial sex offender free to murder 2 women. Simon Levy's risk level was downgraded just 7 months before the first killing, despite his history of attacks on women, and 2 police officers are now under investigation following his conviction.
Simon Levy is a dangerous and predatory offender. His crimes were calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing.
Yes, I mean, you couldn't make it up. The case comes as Andy Burnham reconsiders the early release of PC Andrew Harper's killers, raising fresh questions about whether dangerous offenders are being kept off Britain's streets.
Yes, this is Andy Burnham's first huge test. Does he keep Andrew Harper's killers behind bars, or does he press ahead with the early release game as it stands? More from me very soon.
And talking of Labour, yes, they are set to relax net zero targets. You could call it a U-turn if you wanted to, in response to the cost of living crisis, with the Energy Minister reportedly prioritising lower bills over clean power. Is Labour finally admitting that net zero is hurting those working Brits they claim to care about? And my favourite story of the day, British common sense flushed down the loo. Yes, a squat-style toilets have been installed by a Labour council because they're preferred by some international visitors. But it gets worse. You have to pay £1 to use them. I'll be speaking to the CEO of British Toilets about this bizarre decision. And you can't get away from this one, can you? More small boats are expected to cross the Channel in today's heatwave. Should Britain follow Sweden's lead and cut benefits and deport criminals to stop the boats from coming? And calls to nationalise Britain's railways after days of chaos for travellers. But will nationalisation actually fix the problem? And the sights and sounds of the 1940s return to Kent this weekend as Spitfires, Hurricanes and Second World War veterans come together for the Battle of Britain air show. I love that. I'm Dawn Neeson, and the weekend starts right here and now. OK, so welcome to Saturday Lunchtime. Thank you so much for your company today, as every weekend. And I just want to say a special thank you to all the radio listeners today, because listening numbers for this show are up by, I think it's about 75%. So thank you so much. I really love your company every weekend. And obviously the show is all about you, so please do get in touch. gbnews.com/yoursay and join in the conversation. Or if you're listening on the radio as well, thank you. You can carry on listening if you're in the garden, if you're driving, we are here for you. So a huge thank you from me personally and from GB News in general. OK, now we are going to tackle a very difficult story, a story that you really hope that as a woman you never have to talk about ever again, but sadly it seems to be almost a weekly occurrence now. This next segment does contain some distressing content. A serial sex offender has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third, leaving her for dead. This is after repeated failures let him free to offend. Simon Levy, that's the scumbag's name, murdered Carmenza Valencia Trujillo in March 2025 and Sharon Wilkins just 5 months later. His risk level was downgraded because of his poor eyesight, and that is despite a history of sexual offending. Detective Chief Inspector Neil John says Levy targeted vulnerable women in secluded areas of London.
Simon Levy is a dangerous and predatory offender. His crimes were calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing. Throughout the trial, he has shown complete disregard for the victims and victim survivor, despite being fully aware of the lasting and devastating impact of his actions.
Honestly, it's just awful. Police now admit Cheryl Wilkins' murder could have been prevented, with Scotland Yard, British Transport Police and the Criminal Prosecution Service apologising for what they call a collective system failure. Just want to add that both of the victims were mums. They had little kids. So not only are we talking about two young women losing their life, we're also talking about two children who have been left without their mums. Let's talk to the amazing Maggie Oliver, founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation and a former detective constable. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, we are discussing a story around the safety of women and girls. Now, Maggie, you I've seen both sides of this. You are a former police officer. You have worked tirelessly to protect women and girls from abuse and violence. What do you make of this story and the litany of mistakes that have led to where we are today?
Good afternoon, Dawn. It horrifies me, it angers me, but actually it's heartbreaking to see, because it isn't one, you know as well as me and the public know, this isn't one isolated case of a mistake. What this shows me again, as we see every single week now, is a system, a criminal justice system, which is completely unfit for purpose. You know, it's completely on its knees. And you know, what feeds into this case is so many elements of what I speak about and have been for, 20 years. A lack of investment over decades, decision-making based mainly on cost, not on what is safe. A lack of training for police officers, no experienced detectives, unacceptable delays, prisons being full, and so serious criminals being released when they should not be on the streets. Insufficient sentencing, which gives serious sexual offenders and dangerous men inadequate sentencing. And this is really all driven by a lack of investment, a lack of funding, and decisions being made by people who often are unqualified to work and untrained to work in these kinds of serious cases. On top of that, we have a system which doesn't speak to each other. There's very poor communication. You know, we see this every single day in my work with my charity. You know, one person doesn't speak to another. You go to court and a full file hasn't been submitted, so it's pushed back. Serious offenders are then left on bail, and the risk is not being adequately assessed. And really, this is a culmination of many years and different political parties having neglected our criminal justice system, and this is the consequence.
Maggie, we were told that lessons had been learned after the horrific murder of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer, our Wayne Couzens. But that's not true, is it? Lessons haven't been learned.
No, they just haven't, Dawn. You know, I think, like me, every single person who hears that phrase will roll their eyes and think, here we go again. You know, words are really easy, Dawn. But, you know, I'm looking here, IOPC investigation into the alleged Met failures. You know, we don't want another investigation. And the reality is, Dawn, that even when recommendations are made, they are not implemented because there are cost factors involved. That's why, you know, my charity is taking the government to a judicial review for the failure to implement the 20 recommendations of ICSA, a 7-year inquiry, which flagged up horrific failures that need to be addressed. There's no point having these investigations and these public inquiries when the recommendations are not implemented. And my understanding from some information I was given a few weeks ago is that in the last 25 years, less than 2% of recommendations from public inquiries have been implemented. And what we're doing now, you know, this is all coming home to roost. We are suffering the consequences of decades of underinvestment, and we have got a system really which will continue to fail victims in this way unless we have serious investment. And actually, the other side of it, Dawn, is that I want to see sentences that send out a real message, a deterrent. You know, at the moment, it looks as though anything that you do, violence against women and girls, rape, abuse, violent offences, they literally get a slap on the wrist because our prisons are full. And so the sentences are hugely inadequate. This man, this Simon Levite, he had attacked, I believe, 6 women on the underground. He'd murdered Carmenza. He'd murdered Cheryl Wilkins. He'd also raped and attacked another woman in January of that year. And he'd already been in prison for 6 years and assaulted a prison officer. Even with all of that, they downgraded his risk because in one of the attacks, he was blinded in one eye. That, you know, people don't seem to use their brains or their common sense anymore. There is no joined up system. Each little part is dealt with independently on the other than the other. And what we have here is a pattern of offending that's spread over a period of 8 or 9 years. And I really despair because I don't see the system taking heed or changing. That's the depressing part, Dawn.
Maggie, one of the aspects of this case, as if the whole thing wasn't chilling enough, is that he was released halfway through his sentence in 2023. And the irony of us discussing endlessly this week about the early release of prisoners. And we were told, and we were expected to be grateful, Maggie, that, it won't include rapists. But that's not strictly true, will it? Because grooming gang offenders who were charged with indecent assault because of the way the law was then, who raped 13-year-olds, they will be walking free. So thanks very much for protecting us, government, but you're not, because rapists will be walking free.
No, they're not. And you know what, Dawn? I know I said it the other night when I was with you. You know, the lunatics are running the asylum. They really are. You know, that case you're talking about is one case in Bradford. You know, and the men were convicted before, their offending was before 2003. So they're saying it doesn't actually apply to them. Actually, we shouldn't be looking at the earlier release of any offenders. We should be keeping them in prison. I mean, only, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had Shabir Ahmed, the ringleader of the grooming of the Rochdale case that I resigned under. Over being released from prison after just 14 years. He was meant to be deported. But the other part of that conversation is that actually he stood trial for 2 separate cases within a few months of each other. He was sentenced to 41 years. He should serve 41 years. He should not be out in 14. And also, we keep seeing government, announcing something with a big fanfare, a big PR exercise. Like with that, we're going to deport him. Well, from the very moment he was convicted, it was always going to be impossible to deport him because of a 50-year-old law which said he could not be deported. The people, our leaders, our governments, they are incompetent. Do they not have a brain in their head? They have a whole department of people who should be experts in the law. And yet time and time again, we see them a knee-jerk reaction when something has happened and they're scampering around to make an announcement to say, we're going to address this. We shouldn't be dealing with things on a reactive basis. They should be proactively ahead of the game long before these things happen. And, you wonder what really is going on. We've had a change of prime minister. We've got a new face at the head of our government. The reality is that the men in grey suits in the back offices haven't changed, and they're the ones that are allowing all these things to happen, alongside a lack of investment and prioritising violence and the criminal justice system by successive governments. And this is the consequence,
And Maggie, we talk about, the sentencing and offenders being released sort of like halfway through their sentences. But for the victims, and it's no exaggeration to say this is a life sentence. It never goes away. If you've been, however you want to call it, sexually assaulted, indecent assault, raped, it never goes away. The women and girls that go through this is with them for life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we're supporting women and girls, victims of horrendous abuse that they will never recover from. Now, that by itself is horrific. But what we see time and time and time again, what I've seen for 20 years, is that the impact of a system that lets them down, of, seeing their offenders that they fought sometimes 20 years to see jailed, to then be told, well, they're going to be out, in 3 years. It kind of makes a mockery of them even going forward. And that's why we only have, we have less than 2% of reported rapes or abuse ever reaching a court. And I have to say, if this happened to me or my daughter, unless it was somebody who was, captured on video being dragged down a back alley, you would have to seriously consider, am I going to make this a million times worse? And, in my charity, we, more and more, I see a criminal justice outcome as a bit of a pointless exercise. I would far rather we focus on helping these survivors to recover, to get help, to be heard and believed, and not blamed and not criminalized. And unfortunately, the system seems to have lost sight of that. And I don't have any hope that we're going to see urgent changes that we need. And that's depressing.
That is so truly depressing, Maggie. I really hope. I mean, you've worked so tirelessly for this, and women and girls, thank you for all your work and for keeping this in the public eye. But like you, I fear that the clock is, in some ways, it feels like it's turning backwards for us. Maggie Oliver, thank you so much for joining us today and for all the work you do. That is founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation and former detective constable there. It's just, I know it's a Saturday lunchtime, but it is a horrific story, and it's just so close to my heart, not just because I'm a woman, but because I care about what is happening to women and girls in this country. Any case, let's get the right reply. Elisa Ramsaran, the Chief Crown Prosecutor for the CPS, has said, our actions fell short of the standards that victims, families and the public are entitled to expect. We recognise our responsibility and we are sorry for the shortcomings we have identified. Meanwhile, Crime and Policing Minister Sarah Jones, ironically both of these people are women, the fact that Levy was able to inflict such devastating harm after being freed by police and the courts is deeply concerning. It raises serious questions that require urgent answers. It is right that the IOPC, the Independent Police Investigation Body, are investigating how this happened, in addition to internal reviews by the organisations involved. Any failures must be identified and must not repeated. I'm pretty sure I read a similar statement out when we lost Sarah Everard at the hands of Wayne Couzens, but I'm not meant to comment on that, but I'm sorry, this just makes me angry. Any case, meanwhile, Andy Burnham, our current Prime Minister, is reconsidering the early release of PC Andrew Harper's killers, raising fresh questions about whether dangerous offenders are being kept off Britain's streets. So let's talk to GBNews political correspondent Olivia Utley now. Olivia, I feel like we've been having this conversation for an entire week now about where we are with this story. So what's the update today about who's going to be released when? Well,
it's a very good question, Dawn. We have been talking about this a lot this week because Andy Burnham seems to keep changing his mind. Now, under the guidance of Ministry of Justice officials, Andy Burnham is looking at the possibility of keeping Andrew Harper's killers behind bars. Now, legally, it's quite tricky to do that unless you exempt all of those convicted of manslaughter from the early release clause. That is a possibility, but if you were to do that, that encompasses 1,700 people. There are only 5,000 people who are going to be released in October anyway. If you exempt 1,700 of them, then, that is a pretty big fraction of the overall number. And it would mean that prisons could remain seriously and dangerously overcrowded in the months coming up to the autumn. Obviously, the Andrew Harper case is a case which attracts huge media attention. His grieving widow is a fantastic campaigner and managed to get Harper's Law passed. The question that Andy Burnham seems to be looking at now is, would it be possible simply to exempt Andrew Harper's killers from early release without having to exempt everyone convicted of manslaughter? And of course, the danger is, if you simply only exempt Andrew Harper's killers, then you have the risk that every single defence lawyer for anyone who has been convicted of manslaughter will come forward and say, well, if not those guys, then how about me? And then you could end up in a situation where once the people convicted of manslaughter have been exempted from early release, well, what about some of those other crimes? We've talked earlier about those convicted of serious child sex offences now not being released early. What counts as a non-serious child sex offence? And what when the parents of children who have been victims of non-serious child sex offences come forward and say, hang on a minute, I don't want the perpetrators of these crimes to be released from prison either. I think you could get to the point where, drip by drip, Andy Burnham has to water down that early release scheme until almost no one is released this autumn.
It's like, as we were discussing with Maggie earlier, the indecent assault phrase. We're told, thank you so much for this, we were told that rapists aren't being freed. But because of the change in the law, if you were convicted before 2003 of indecent assault...
Even if you are a grooming gang
Even if you are a grooming gang person, I use that term loosely, and you've raped a 13-year-old, you're going to walk free.
I mean, it seems astonishing, and I think this is the issue which Andy Burnham is going to be grappling with over the summer. Nobody wants any of these criminals to be released early. And once you start, absolutely, but once you start carving out particular exemptions, then, of course, there will be compelling cases from all sorts of victims saying, but I don't think that the perpetrator of the crime that happened against me should be released early either. Now, of course, I think most of our viewers would say, well, good, let's keep them behind bars for as long as possible. But then you run into the risk of those prisons becoming overcrowded. And at the moment, there are about 86,000 prisoners behind bars. The prisons have capacity for about 89,000. We are at 97% capacity. And by the autumn, these prisons could completely collapse. And then you have the danger of new convicts will have no space in jail. It's a really difficult question for Andy Burnham, and I think his first big test as our Prime Minister.
Yeah, indeed, from whatever beach he happens to be on holiday on. Olivia Utley, for now, thank you so much. And as always, please do let me know what you think about both of those stories. OK, then we have some breaking news for you as well. Hundreds of migrants are attempting to cross the English Channel today after calmer weather allowed people smugglers to launch boats for the first time in 5 days. We know at least 5 dinghies are understood to be heading towards British waters. One boat carrying 23 people got within a couple of miles of the Kent coast before Border Force vessels and a lifeboat intercepted it near Dover. If all the boats make it across today's crossings could take the total number of illegal arrivals this year past 14,500, with more crossings possible tomorrow. Just to recap there for you, that is, more small boat crossings are making their way across as we speak. At least 5 dinghies are understood to be heading our way. One boat has already been intercepted. Olivia is still with me in the studio. Olivia, another story that just refuses to go away and no one seems to be doing anything about.
No, again, another huge challenge for Andy Burnham. Labour were heartened to see that the figures have been down, the small boat crossing figures have been down by 44% on last year. And over the last couple of weeks, we have been saying at GBNews that it did look as though some of the policies that the government enacted were starting to work. Now we are seeing those figures tick up again. And experts are beginning to suggest that actually that decrease in numbers, that 44% decrease that we've seen so far, could simply have been a result of choppy conditions in the Channel. I think it's easy for us to sort of look out the window, see a lovely sunny, hot day and think that the Channel is probably clear. That's not how it works. The temperature and the conditions on land are not the same as the conditions at sea. So we will have to see. But it is beginning to look as though some of those changes introduced by Shabana Mahmood, including that £600 million deal agreed with the French to try and get them to police the French borders, that deal which we thought was beginning to show dividends may not be working as well as we previously thought.
The 40% is an interesting figure because what we're not told in this, well, we've stopped the boats by 42% coming over the Channel, but the French have actually clamped down on illegal migrants in France, nothing to do with the Channel, by around 42%. Bless you, Olivia. Oh, my gosh, bless you. She's allergic to the fact... She's allergic to talk about small boat migrants. But so the French have actually stopped her by around about 40% in their own country in any case. So there's less people in France to come across her.
Well, exactly.
But we're not told that bit.
And there are changes being made in the EU as well, which makes it more difficult for migrants to come over to the EU. So the question of whether it's anything that British policymakers are doing or whether it's changes that are happening sort of upstream, as it were, that's making the difference, we will have to see. There are those who argue that until there is a sort of serious deterrent policy in place, you know, migrants will find a way, even if it is more difficult for them to head directly across the Channel from France to England. Will they be going down the downstream to Belgium? And we are already seeing that happening,
yes,
which
indeed.
is a more trepidatious journey and could end in more lives being lost. There isn't a simple solution to this.
Olivia Utley, thank you so much. And allergic to talking about small boats. I think we're all getting that way, aren't we? OK, another right reply here. A Home Office spokesperson has said the government is bearing down on dangerous small boat crossings and restoring control at our border. In any case, I'm Dawn Newsom, this is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. Labour are set to relax net zero targets in response to the cost of living crisis, with the Energy Minister reportedly prioritising lower bills over clean power. Is Labour finally admitting net zero is hurting working Brits? And can we describe this as a U-turn? All of that and much more to come. This is News, Britain's news channel. I'll see you soon.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the
unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
To warm family brunches.
from football to tennis in the car,
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there.
With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Newsom. Thank you so much for your company this Saturday at lunchtime. Now, Sadiq Khan is urging Andy Burnham not to weaken Labour's climate commitments as the government weighs up changes to its net zero plans. The London mayor says this summer's extreme weather shows the need for urgent action. It comes as ministers consider easing electric vehicle targets, while a decision on new drilling in the North Sea is expected within weeks. Sounds a little bit like a U-turn, 15 days, 16 days, 17 days into the new Prime Minister's role. Is it a U-turn? Let's talk to founder and co-director of Climate Debate UK, Ed Rennie. Ed, thank you so much for coming in to see us today and talk about exactly what is going on here. Now, the headline in the Times is Labour looks to row back on net zero targets. Is this confirmed, or is it just one of those things they're, running up the flagpole and seeing who salutes?
It seems to be confirmed because the new Minister for Energy and Climate Change has been interviewed about it, and she's basically saying this much. But it also, we know they will have to do something like this between now and 2030, because net zero is the most idiotic economic policy we've ever had since the euro. Obviously, we didn't join the euro, but in fact, it's probably more stupid than the euro. Now, why this is happening is because people don't necessarily want to buy electric cars. They've set these targets. So, for example, something like 30 or 33% electric cars by 2030. That is completely unachievable. Now, it's completely unachievable because people can choose electric cars. I mean, who remembers hybrid cars? Everything was fine. Hybrid car use was going up and electric car use was going up when you let consumers choose that. I have a friend, he's a net zero skeptic, but he likes his electric cars.
Many people do, yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. The point is if the government is trying to impose on not just cars, tumble dryers, all the rest of it, these specific purchases, that's government mandated of what you can buy and what you can't buy. So it speaks to the control freakery that has certainly be present under the previous Tory government, was expressly present under Keir Starmer, and now it looks like Andy Burnham's trying to tweak a little bit. But remember, Rishi Sunak tried to make a move like this early on when he was Prime Minister as well, and that kind of faded into obscurity. So this, although this is, I think, is a genuine move, it will fade into obscurity because obviously the government doesn't have to go to the polls until 2029, and these targets are 2030, which is quite convenient.
So the measures being suggested at the moment, rather than 33% of new vehicles sold this year are fully electric at the moment, and the proportion is meant to rise to by 2030 to 80%. So it's dropping to 50% is the aim suggested in this. So lowering the target of how many electric cars we have to drive. I mean, the problem with electric cars, not only are they hideously expensive, we don't have the infrastructure to support them as well. And it is, as I said, for most people, it's very, very expensive. So in theory, this is good news. It's just whether it will actually happen.
Also, remember that the problem is this, is that electric cars and, for example, hybrids, which now seem to have completely disappeared, although they obviously...
where did they go? I mean, it was, they went the same way as the whole diesel debate.
But the point is the market was having the desired effect, which is that as they were becoming more desirable and demand was going up, of course, the price was falling, as it used to do with CDs and DVDs and everything else. Anyway, people know the trend. But the point of why this is particularly nonsensical across the whole pitch is that electric cars, of course, although they don't pollute in locality, a lot of pollution is there to create them and, of course, to power them. And, of course, as we cut our oil, gas and coal use in the UK, our energy is sourced from hydrocarbons, i.e. fossil fuels from abroad, which pollute more. And, of course, these are the majority of the sources of power which are powering electric cars. Electric cars are not powered by wind and solar and other renewables. So globally, in terms of cutting global emissions, electric car use increasing in this country makes absolutely no sense at all.
Can we describe this as a U-turn?
Yes, definitely. But the question is will it be like the Rishi Sunak U-turn, where it kind of disappears into... Also, it just becomes, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, the government won't necessarily be punished or rewarded either way, because the point is the reason they're having to do this is because the target is just physically, technically, economically impossible.
Impossible. And Mieta Fambula, who is the, just in case you were struggling to keep up, the Energy Secretary, this is her interview in the Times, and she's being candid. She actually uses the word, she goes, candidly, my job is to keep people with us.
Yes.
So she is actually, it seems that she's listening to what people are saying about the electric car situation and how much going green is costing us.
Yes, and she uses the figure of 80% support. Now, 80% support is one of those, it will come from one of those polls where people say, do you think we should look after our environment? And of course, 80, 90%.
No one's going to say, no, I really hate it, let's destroy it.
Yes. Would you like to destroy the industrial base of this country and farm it out to China, which will cause more emissions? 80%, 90% would say no. So this public support is very large, but it's extremely thin, and there are lots of examples of that, as we know, in politics, but this is one of the largest ones, because 80% of people, anything politically controversial, and net zero is politically controversial, is not supported by 80% of the people when you get into the weeds of it. And it's going to have to be defeated, because globally, net zero requires up to 90% reduction in oil use globally by 2050. 90% reduction. That's not proportionately, that's in absolute terms. So now the figure is quite broad, which suggests that they don't really know. I mean, this comes from the Energy Transitions Commission, which Adair Turner is on. He used to be Director General of the CBI. He was the first chair of the Climate Change Committee in the UK. So it's globally, it goes back to my original point, which is globally, this is an economic nonsense. It is galactically idiotic. It is impossible. Globally, it cannot be achieved. China isn't going to do it. America isn't going to do it. Most of Latin America isn't going to do it. And if Africa has any sense at all, they're not going to do it. So it makes a nonsense at every stage, because if we try and pursue it, we end up increasing emissions because we've exported our...
OK, well, maybe the government will finally listen to us. OK, thank you so much. Well, fingers crossed on that one. Thank you. That is a founder and co-director of a Climate Debate UK, Ed Rennie. And have the debate. What do you think about this? Are the government listening? I mean, this might be a U-turn, which is a good U-turn, possibly. Let us know. gbnews.com/your say. OK, now there is lots more coming up on today's show. Is British common sense down the loo? Well, yes, basically, spoiler alert. Squat-style toilets have been installed by a Labour council because they're preferred by some international visitors. Hello, what about the British people? I'll be speaking to the CEO of British Toilets about this bizarre decision, and yes, you've paid for it as well. Next, all of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. I'll see you soon.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Outbreaks of rain will continue across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland today. Much drier for England and Wales. With rising temperatures, the next heat wave is on its way. Extensive cloud, however, as we start the weekend. The cloud across England and Wales will break, although one or two showers may pop up across parts of Wales and Western England. Nothing substantial, of course, as is the theme so far this summer, but the most persistent and at times heavy rain will be across the north and west of Scotland, Northern Ireland, where we don't need further rain. Feeling cool here with a blustery wind. Much warmer day to come for England and Wales compared with the weeks so far. This is the first day of what looks likely to be another fairly intense heat wave. Now, as we end the day on Saturday, plenty of sunshine for England and Wales. Temperatures still up into the mid or even high 20s during the evening. A very different story over the border into Scotland, Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover. Outbreaks of rain, heavy and persistent at times. Although through the evening it will tend to break up. It will become more fragmented. It will sink a little into the northwest of England. The breeze will ease. Just some showers for the far north and northwest of Scotland. Otherwise, a little drier in northern areas by the end of the night. Now, for England and Wales, it stays clear through the night, but it's a warmer night compared with recent nights. Higher humidities, a little more comfortable for sleeping. And after a warm start to the day across the southern half of the UK, it's going to be another hot one. Hottest day we've had for a week or so. and temperatures rising quickly through the morning. Extensive sunshine across England and Wales, away from the far north of England, where there will be some cloud and patchy rain initially. And then the rain becomes more confined to central and southern Scotland. Showery stuff for Northern Ireland and far north. A keen breeze here, making it feel cool further south into the low 30s.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. And now, let's get straight to the point of this one, shall we? A strange one. Squat-style toilets have been installed in Cambridge. The toilets are located opposite Queen's College at the University of Cambridge, and anyone who wants to use them will have to pay £1 for the privilege. Squat toilets are commonplace in China and India, as well as on the continent, are considered more hygienic by some cultures. I think you know which cultures we're talking about here. Joining me now is the Managing Director of the British Toilet Association, Raymond Martin. Raymond, so many questions about how you get to do your job. But can we just talk about this story first of all? Squat-style toilets, because they are preferred by international visitors. What's wrong with British bogs?
Absolutely nothing wrong with British bogs, but just we were probably the envy coming from Victorian times. We built toilets and thunder buses, whatever sort of stuff, and we brought in good sanitation, good hygiene. That didn't get across the world for many, many years, and they're so used to using squat toilets in India and China, places like that, maybe even France and Germany and Italy. But coming over to here, there's many, many more cultures coming into the country now and living in the country now, and they just want what they had or what they know, as opposed to the Western style loo, as you and I would know it. They want squat toilets put into certain places, and Cambridge have taken a bit of a leap here.
Raymond, call me old-fashioned, but if I went to a country where squat toilets were the norm, I wouldn't expect them to suddenly start building good old-fashioned British bogs just because I'm there.
Well, strangely enough, in Beijing, when the Olympics were in Beijing, they built 3,500 Western-style toilets because all the people were coming from Europe and from Americas and Canada, whatever, and they were coming to Beijing, and Beijing thought, hang on, we have to look after their cleanliness, their hygiene, their comfort. And so some countries will do it. I think what Cambridge have done is they've recognised that they're getting a lot of international visitors, and these visitors are bringing money. They're bringing revenue with them, and they're coming into town, and that's what's helping to regenerate the high streets. With something we've been talking to government for a long time is if you want to regenerate the high streets, you've got to get toilets in place so people can freshen themselves up and look after themselves. So Cambridge have just taken a wee step forward and thought, let's build some slabs.
Yeah, no, I mean, Raymond, thank you so much. It's been enlightening talking to you, but I really do think that the Great British Toilet is part of our culture, a bit like the pub, and we should be promoting it, and we shouldn't be doing the squatting thing. It's hard work on your thighs, to be honest with you.
Oh, it really is. It really is. They're not for us. They're not for the English people.
No, exactly.
They're just for our continental visitors.
OK, Raymond, thank you so much for joining us today. That is Managing Director of the British Toilet Association, Raymond Martin. Do like a chat with a sense of humour on a Saturday. OK, and we have a right of reply. I mean, why wouldn't we? The leader of Cambridge City Council, Katie Thornborough, said in response to this story, international tourists spend time in the city. We wanted to provide suitable facilities to meet the demand with a range of toilets to choose from, including a number of the squat toilets that many international visitors prefer. Well, I say British bogs for British people. Take me up on that one. OK, now let's move on, shall we? The sights and the sounds of the 1940s return to Kent this weekend as Dakotas, Hurricanes and Second World War veterans, the ones that are still left, come together for the Battle of Britain Air Show. Well, we've sent the wonderful Bethany Elsey down there for reporting for us. Bethany, how's it going?
Hi Dawn, it's going brilliantly. As you say, we're at the RAF Woodchurch in Ashford for the Battle of Britain Air Show. There are hundreds of people who've turned out on what is a gorgeous day here in Kent, remembering the Battle of Britain, of course, but also everything that was involved in World War II. You can see behind me the Dakota plane. Everyone's gone quiet now because they're all listening to what I've got to say, but they're all watching the planes in the sky preparing for the air show that starts at 1 p.m. Of course, I'll have the iconic Spitfires and Hurricanes as well as some bombers as well. But before we get to that, let's speak to Nikos Markantonis, who's a committee member. Can you tell us what you're doing here today?
So we are a living history group. We are the Screaming Eagles. We represent the 101st Airborne 506th, Easy Company. If you've ever seen Band of Brothers, the guys that are in that is who we represent, but we try and do it as authentically as possible and remember the veterans that wore these uniforms before us.
Can you tell us about some of the equipment on this very, very busy table?
Of course I can. So here we've got the 30 cal machine gun. This was the machine gun that they dropped in with in Normandy. And then over here we've got the other weapons that they would have used. We've got the bazooka, the M1 Garand, which fired 30.06 round, which is these out of an M-block clip. And then here we have got the folding stock carbine. This was used by the specialist teams that carried the machine gun, the mortar or the bazooka. So it was a light variant, but in between a pistol and the M1 Garand, which was a bit heavier.
Nikos, tell us how important events like these are and groups like yours are in, educating the younger generations about what happened.
It's very important. Keeping history alive is one of the main things that we have as an ethos of the group, and we try and keep everyone involved as much as we can. The young ones, it's especially important. They don't get taught much in school, especially about the Americans and what their input was into the war, but all walks of life that were involved in World War II that are the unsung heroes.
Thank you so much for speaking to us on GB News. So as well as the air show that starts at 1 p.m, we'll also be speaking to veterans, bringing history to life, and hopefully I might speak to some D-Day darlings as well.
Ooh, brilliant. It sounds a real fun day out. Thank you so much, Bethany. And we will be going back to Bethany Elsey at the air show in Kent throughout the show. Thank you, Bethany. Loads of you getting in touch about toilets. I thought you would. JJ says another step towards becoming a third world country. Mike says it's all over. Toilets are the last bastion of our freedom. And lots of you saying if you don't like it, bog off, which I kind of agree with. Can I say that? I just did. In any case, complain if you like. But gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in that conversation or any of the others. I'm Dawn Newsom. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. We're going to go over all the sport with the wonderful Aidan McGee. But before we get to that, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's a forecast for those top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Another heatwave on the way for many parts of Europe, this time from France through Central Europe into Italy and some eastern parts of Europe. An extensive heatwave, temperatures into the high 30s, if not low 40s in places. Actually, Spain, not so hot, especially around the coast. More pleasant here, but it's going to be very hot through France with some thunderstorms developing. Italy, over the next few days, temperatures getting up to 40 Celsius in Rome.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Charlie, as most of the viewers know, I would be involved in agriculture. This isn't quite agriculture. It's quite close to it, the cousins of. A lot of things that go on in agriculture are on display here. Thousands of people coming to this site, Ragley Hall, just about 45 minutes out of Birmingham.
We are the modern ruralists, and here today we have the craft yard. We've got 9 different crafts, all demonstrating what they're up to. Here we have the wheelwrights. and they're bonding a wheel here. So this is an ancient craft that's been going for about. Barney Murray's a bit of a legend, quite frankly. He's the national champion, master dry stone waller, comes from North Wales, and he's a bit of a Thor lookalike, so he's quite popular.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, at 16 minutes past 8, the annual bike ride from Yorkshire to London is taking place today, aiming to honour the legacy of the Batley and Spen Labour MP Joe Cox, who was murdered by a far-right terrorist in June of 2016.
Well, the bike ride aims to champion a cause she was passionate about, as this year marks the 10th anniversary of her tragic death.
Kim, if we can just start with you, what is your sister's legacy?
Well, there's so much that we've got to be proud of that's been done in Joe's name. It's just been 10 years since she was murdered, and what has kept us going as a family has been the way that so many amazing people, including people like this amazing man, have done things in Joe's name to show what our country is really about. And you've got all these amazing people today from all different backgrounds, all walks of life, celebrating the things that we have in common, not agreeing on everything.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a difficult question. Honestly, I don't think I would at this rate, because I think the government tracks, when we say we're fighting for Britain, what are we actually fighting for? The concept of Britain, I don't think exists anymore. When I look at Britain, when I go outside, it doesn't seem to be very British. And I think the core demographic of the people who would normally fight, these white working class boys who, you know, have been fighting for Britain, who we expect just to sacrifice their life in a fight, you know, they've been demonised for decades and decades by the government, by our education system, by the media. Economically, they've been disadvantaged. So why would we expect them to risk their lives when we've demonised them for so long and took them for granted for so long? And this concept of Britain fighting for the British government, you know, the British government has betrayed us.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend. I'm pulling this face because Aidan McGee's in the studio with me, and Aidan always deserves that kind of face. Aidan, we're going to talk about sport, aren't we? I mean, the front page of the Telegraph today, still banging on about Gianni Infantino. What's this one about this time?
Well, look, he's been his alleged lover was given a severance payment over an affair he allegedly had at UEFA. Don't forget, he was the general secretary at UEFA between 2009 and 2016. I mean, talk about all our yesterdays. I mean, he hasn't been there for 10 years, and apparently this woman, according to UEFA, was paid off. And but she was paid off only to be given, or they've kind of...
This is all allegedly,
yes,
obviously.
they distanced themselves from it by saying that it was the six-figure severance payout was to cover the cost of an MBA business course at a local business school. But look, we all know where it's come from. It's obvious. It's pretty pathetic, I would argue, because, you know, I think that the European governing body should be behaving slightly better than that, than try and dig up affairs. As if affairs get people sacked anymore. They just don't. Not in football. It's kind of been part of the... Well, it's been part of the territory for the last 50 odd years, unfortunately, even if you're going back to the FA days, maybe 20 years ago with Sven, etc. So that's where we are at the moment. We're still in a situation where he's riding out a storm, and I don't think he's going to go. Chris Scudder was on Breakfast just last week, and we both agree. We think he's going to ride it out. That's what these guys do. Yeah. And if UEFA really think they're going to go off and form a different World Cup, I mean, goodness me, who are they trying to kid? I mean, the fact that they gave it a really pithy, sort of nondescript, glib name, which just invites sponsorship. And that's, to be fair to FIFA, that's one thing they've never done. They've never tried to sponsor the World Cup. And as I say, we never found out what these proposals were. We never found out what they would look like. I sound like I'm defending FIFA a little bit. You do. But that's because... To be honest with you. Yes, that's because I just think it's getting a bit puerile. I really do. And I think that story there is only the front page of one paper, and that's the one that's done the investigation. Yeah. On the rest of them, it looks like they're bored of it, a bit like we are.
Well, yeah, so we should talk about proper football then, because proper football is back.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the...
Kind of.
Yeah, the Carabao Cup is back today. Yeah. And as you pointed out in the build-up there, in the break, we said that Carabao Cup first round always starts on usually the first midweek after the opening day of the season.
Yeah, it's the middle of the week.
Yeah, and we don't tend to be that enthused by it. We tend to have, there tends to be, like, Championship side versus team from League One, League Two. Very low attendances. Sometimes you might get the crowd swelled a bit by the travelling supporters. But today, some interesting fixtures. I mean, you've got West Ham playing Portsmouth. Portsmouth taking 9,000 to the London Stadium. The first time they played there. And there'll be a decent crowd there because not everyone sees the pre-season friendlies. Not everyone likes pre-season friendlies. I mean, I went to 2 last week at QPR. QPR was so disappointed at Bromley because Bromley only played 2 or 3 first-team players. What's the point of that when you're just a week out or 2 weeks out from the season? So you're not getting what you want out of it. At least it's competitive. At least there's a place in the next round on the line. And it's on a Saturday. So, QPR playing Millwall today, for example. I think Millwall sold out their allocation. And there'll be probably 3,000 or 4,000 extra on the gate that you get if it was playing a normal friendly 2 weeks out from the start of the season. So, that's something to be welcomed, I think, just as an experiment. We saw Middlesbrough playing against Wrexham last night. That was a decent game by all accounts. So I would prefer to see this as an experiment than just your normal raft of friendlies where you get deals in friendlies where teams aren't allowed to tackle and things like that. It gets quite ridiculous.
Yeah, OK. Well, we haven't got time to mention Man City just very quickly.
Man City, we haven't got time?
No, we haven't.
Oh, no worries, I'm out of time. Back tomorrow.
We'll talk about that. OK, Aidan McGee, thank you so much. OK, don't go anywhere. We'll be back after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. The rest of Saturday promises to be fine and warm across most of England and Wales. There will be some cloud around but plenty of sunshine too. Further north and west though, it's been a much more unsettled day and that's courtesy of this area of low pressure and this weather front that's edging its way southeastwards across the UK as we go into Sunday. But as I say, for most of England and Wales, bar the odd very isolated light shower that might just bring a dampening of the ground, it will be a dry evening and night, some clear spells around too, and not as chilly as last night. Temperatures generally holding up in the teens Celsius, particularly in our larger towns in the cities. Having said that, further north and west though, it will be a much wetter night. So by the end of the night, this band of rain starting to work its way into parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for northern Scotland, particularly the Northern Isles, Shetland, Orkney and the Hebrides, a much brighter start to the day on Sunday compared to on Saturday. Not as windy as well, albeit still breezy with the odd shower. For Northern Ireland, though, quite a damp day to come. The rain not necessarily persisting all day long, but there will be some spells of light to moderate rain. Most of England and Wales, though, largely fine to begin the day on Sunday. A good deal of sunshine and just a bit of high-level cloud out and about. And here, temperatures will really rocket in that strong August sunshine through Sunday. So a hotter day to come compared to Saturday. Temperatures by the afternoon, well, widely in the high 20s and probably 30 to 32 Celsius in central, southern and southeastern parts of England. Further north, though, a fresher feeling day on Sunday. Quite a bit of cloud for northern England and Northern Ireland. A few showery outbreaks into the afternoon too. More comfortable temperatures here, 18 to 20 degrees. And still quite breezy in the north of Scotland with 1 or 2 showers. Through Sunday evening, the band of cloud and rain tends to peter out as it works its way a little bit further south into the Midlands. But by Monday, high pressure is once again building across many parts of the UK, bringing largely sunny conditions for Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures on the rise once again and reaching the mid-30s in places.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to Orlis Santi by Domes Resorts, and there's just 2 weeks left to see how you too could be enjoying the 5-star lifestyle. First, you can bank an incredible £60,000. We'll also give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, it's 1 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of August, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you so much for your company. We've got a packed hour coming up for you. A catalogue of failures across Britain's criminal justice system left a serial sex offender free to murder 2 women. Simon Levy's risk level was downgraded just 7 months before the first killing, despite his history of attacks on women, and 2 police officers are now under investigation following his conviction.
Simon Levy is a dangerous and predatory offender. His crimes were calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing.
Yes, the irony of the crime coming just as Andy Burnham reconsiders the early release of PC Andrew Harper's killers, raising fresh questions about whether dangerous offenders are being kept off our streets. And some breaking news for you. GB News can confirm that hundreds of migrants are attempting to cross the Channel as we speak, after calmer weather allowed people smugglers to launch boats for the first time in 5 days. We know that at least 5 dinghies are understood to be heading towards British waters.
Yes, for months now, it has looked as though Labour's anti-illegal immigration policies have been working, but now numbers are ticking up once again. What does that mean for the new Prime Minister? Find out more with me very soon.
And as you may have noticed, travelling recently hasn't been that great, especially on the railways. But calls to nationalise Britain's railways after all that chaos. But will nationalisation work? Will it fix Britain's malfunctioning rail network? We'll be just talking about that one. And anti-Israel songs, you won't believe this story. Anti-Israel songs have reportedly been taught at a pro-Palestine summer school where kids were heard chanting, "We will have victory over Zionism." Do you think it's right to send kids to these kind of summer camps? And talking of summer, it's time for yet another heatwave. Britain's temperatures are set to hit 36 degrees next week, and health warnings have naturally been issued as the mercury climbs. And this is a lovely story. The sights and sounds of the 1940s return to Kent this weekend as Spitfires, Hurricanes and Second World War veterans come together for the Battle of Britain Air Show.
Yes, we're at the Battle of Britain Air Show in Kent. Hundreds, if not thousands of people have turned out to see the most iconic British warplanes, including the Spitfires, which are already roaring ahead. We'll be speaking to veterans and those involved in reenactments, keeping history alive.
I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for your company. And I knew this would happen. There are certain subjects that you think, OK, I wonder if people will engage in this one. And I'm flushed with success to say that so many of you are getting in touch about the toilet story, about the fact that in Cambridge they have installed squat toilets for foreign visitors. I think we all kind of know what they're referring to. For foreign visitors, as it makes them feel more comfortable. Loads of you are getting in touch, and Mary says, the first time I ever saw one of those loos was in the 1980s, travelling down through France. We stopped off, and I was so shocked. And I'm sorry, I've lost your name now, but you lived in Thailand for a while, where they had squat loos as well. And they also had the ordinary Western toilets. And you were saying that even the locals would queue to go to the Western toilets rather than use the squat toilets. So, and this is obviously all being paid for by the taxpayer, and you have to pay to use them as well. But what's wrong with British bogs? I'm supporting British bogs here today. But do keep those messages coming in at gbnews.com/your say or scan the QR code. You can talk, you don't have to talk about loos. You can talk about anything you want, to be honest with you, but we are talking about the most horrific story. All too common, it seems, these days, about the tube monster who was vowed to rape and murder. It's a horrific story, and we will be going into that one as well, but please do have your say. In any case, we've got a huge hour coming up together, all of that coming up. After your news headlines, it's the wonderful Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you, and good afternoon to you. The top story this lunchtime. Kemi Badenoch says the case of Simon Levy is symptomatic of the litany of failures in Britain's criminal justice system. The Conservative leader described the convicted sex offender as a modern-day Jack the Ripper, who was repeatedly released and allowed to continue what she called a campaign of terror against women. Levy was found guilty at the Old Bailey of murdering Comenza Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Wilkins, as well as rape and other serious offences. The Met, British Transport Police and the Crown Prosecution Service have all admitted failings in the case. Well, yesterday, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Met Police, Kevin Southworth, says the case is a collective system failure and a tragedy beyond words.
His behaviour is self-evidently that of a very prolific serial sexual predator who seeks his sexual gratification in a number of ways, whether it's opportunistically offending against strangers on the underground system, or whether it's targeting sex workers in the most horrific and harrowing fashion. So I think ultimately what we're talking about here is a serial sexual predator who's finally been brought to justice, but ultimately one too late to help the victims.
Investigators looking into the death of the former MP Anne Widdecombe have reopened a year-old probe into an alleged firebomb attack at Nigel Farage's London home. Police say the incident involved a lit incendiary device being posted through the Reform UK leader's letterbox in April last year. The case was originally investigated as an attempted burglary, but was closed with no arrests. Officers now say a line of inquiry which may have been relevant was not identified or pursued at the time, with the IOPC investigating the conduct of a counter-terrorism policing staff member in London. Well, breaking this lunchtime, hundreds of migrants are attempting to cross the English Channel today after calmer weather's allowed people smugglers to launch boats for the first time in 5 days. At least 5 dinghies are understood to be heading towards British waters. One boat carrying 23 people got within a couple of miles of the Kent coast before Border Force vessels and a lifeboat intercepted it at a beach near Dover. If all the boats make it across, today's crossings could take the total number of illegal arrivals this year past 14,500, with more crossings possible tomorrow. Spain is imposing border controls on all air and sea travel from Italy as a migration row between Madrid and Rome intensifies. The checks will come into force from midnight and are due to last for a month. Madrid says passengers arriving from Italy will face passport, nationality and visa checks because of persistent irregular migratory pressure. It comes after Italy imposed its own controls following the arrival of around 78,000 migrants into Spain's Africa enclave of Ceuta. But Rome has said it will not accept ultimatums from Spain. In Scotland, a convicted child rapist has been caught after escaping from staff while escorted on leave. Cliff Lyons-Dobby, who is a restricted patient, absconded from Perth city centre on Friday, triggering a police manhunt. Police Scotland confirmed this morning he had been apprehended. Dobby was convicted of raping a 10-year-old girl in Glasgow while on bail for sexually abusing a 12-year-old boy in 1990 and has been housed in secure units ever since. The University of Cambridge says it is now reviewing how it appoints senior academics after the resignation of Professor Jason Arday in the middle of a plagiarism row. Professor Arday became Cambridge's youngest black professor and has faced allegations of plagiarism and exaggerating parts of his CV, claims though he denies. A group of academics has called for an independent inquiry, with one professor warning the university is facing massive reputational damage. Cambridge now says it is aware of public concern and will continue investigating the circumstances around Professor Arday's appointment. Gianni Infantino is facing fresh pressure today after claims his alleged lover was given a severance payment by UEFA while he was the General Secretary. Daily Telegraph reports the woman, who allegedly had a relationship with Infantino, received a six-figure sum during his time as European football's governing body. A spokesman for FIFA president says that he strongly denies the allegations, calling them categorically untrue and defamatory. UEFA, though, says a departure payment was made, including funding for an MBA course, but insists payments were in line with regulations at the time. And the UK is heading for what could be its fifth widespread heatwave of the year so far, with temperatures set to climb again this weekend. Yellow heat health alerts have been issued for most of England until Tuesday, warning of pressure on health and social care and an increased risk to vulnerable people. Temperatures could again pass 30 degrees in the southeast from Sunday, with many areas also expected to meet the threshold for an official heatwave next week. It comes after record-breaking summers so far, with no significant rain in sight for England or Wales, meaning drought conditions and hosepipe bans are unlikely to ease. Those are the latest headlines for now. Well, no watering your garden, Dawn. Heatwave's on the way.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Sam. I've only got a balcony and I love heat waves, to be honest with you, but I am married to a redhead who treats the sun like it's like, he turns into a vampire, if I'm being completely honest with you. OK, we have got a packed hour together, and I'm warning you that the story we're discussing, first of all, is a real horror show. It's a horror show I find myself talking about almost on a daily basis now. It's the murder and sexual abuse of women and girls in this country. OK, this segment does contain distressing content, I will warn you. A serial sex offender has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third, leaving her for dead. This is after repeated failures let him free to offend. Simon Levy murdered Carmenza Valencia Trujillo in March 2025 and Cheryl Wilkins just 5 months later. His risk level was downgraded because of his poor eyesight, and this is despite a history of sexual offending. Detective Chief Inspector Neil John says Levy targeted vulnerable women in secluded areas of London.
Simon Levy is a dangerous and predatory offender. His crimes were calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing. Throughout the trial, he has shown complete disregard for the victims and victim survivor, despite being fully aware of the lasting and devastating impact of his actions.
Police now admit that Cheryl Wilkins' murder could have been prevented, with Scotland Yard, British Transport Police and the CPS, Criminal Prosecution Service, apologising for what they call a collective system failure. Well, I'm sorry, they can apologise all they want, but 2 women are dead. 2 kids are now going to grow up without their mums. Let's talk to the director of the Women's Rights Network and former police superintendent, Kathy Larkman. Kathy, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Kathy, a horror story once again we are talking about. Once again, we are being offered apologies, promises to do better, declarations about how important women and girls' safety is a priority for policing. I'm sorry, Kathy, we've heard it all before.
Yeah, we absolutely have, Dawn, and we've heard it many, many times. I hate to say this, but this is a feature and not a glitch within policing. There are so many questions raised in relation to this. But first of all, I do want to say that I'm very glad that Simon Levy has now been caught and he is behind bars. And my sincere sympathies to his many victims, to the families of the women that he murdered, to the raped woman, to all the women and girls sexually assaulted by him. You know, for many of them, their pain was unnecessary and completely avoidable. And I think policing and the whole of the criminal justice system, including the Crown Prosecution Service and the courts, need to look very, very hard at themselves with some honesty. And personally, I feel an inquiry is in order here, not just into this Levy matter, but across the whole business of how seriously the criminal justice system actually deals with violence against women and girls, and not just the warm words, but their actions.
Why? I mean, we have seen it a million times before. I mean, Sarah Everard, Wayne Couzens, a serving police officer. I mean, that was horrific. What Sarah went through is just unimaginable. And yet here we are again, talking about, again, what these women went through before they died and the countless other victims. I mean, there's one in the Daily Mail today, there's one girl talking about how she was sexually assaulted on a packed tube train by this person. And not only did people not go to her aid, but when she complained about it, she wasn't taken seriously.
Well, a lot of women form part of this inquiry so far in relation to Simon Levy for being targeted and assaulted on the London Underground. And unfortunately, the tube system, as I've discussed before, is a sweetie shop for sexual predators, unfortunately, and yet we see hardly any staff on the underground there. Women and girls are left so exposed at particular times to these offenders. It's a very, very sorry situation. And it's rare to see a British Transport Police officer there as well, I have to say. But I do have to be fair and say that there are massive resourcing issues across police forces that play into this as well, that really need to form part of that inquiry too. But the general sort of staffing situation on there, the general supervision, it really is a horror story all around for women and girls.
Kathy, do you still think that there is a situation with the safety around women and girls, certainly in regards to sex offenders, that we're just not being taken seriously still? That almost a lot of the time, politics become before our safety.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've mentioned, the awful, horrific events around Sarah Everard. The Metropolitan Police didn't recognise the risks posed by Wayne Couzens when he was under their very nose. They didn't recognise the risks posed by David Garrick. And these are just two to mention. So how do we expect them to recognise the risks posed by Simon Levy then? And, it does cause huge concern when our Prime Minister, Andy Burnham, is talking about the early release of prisoners and saying that they will be under stringent monitoring and supervision. That isn't the case. I think the public would be horrified if they looked at how many officers are actually monitoring serious sex offenders who are out on our streets, and if they looked at the workloads of those officers. And that's aside from the fact that somebody here has assessed this man as being of medium risk and thinking somehow that the loss of sight in his one eye was a contributory factor to lowering his risk. Well, it didn't lower his risk of sexually predatory behaviour. It didn't lower it didn't sort of contribute to his sexual behaviour in any way. It just, limited his sight. Did they even get any advice from an expert in sight issues here and how that was likely to impact him? I'd be interested to know that. But the whole thing is incomprehensible, and he was actually assessed as medium risk when he'd already served a term of imprisonment in relation to sexual offences. He'd sexually assaulted a prison officer. He had been returned to prison to serve the rest of his sentence after another alleged rape had taken place, and they lower his risk to medium. It's quite extraordinary. It's frightening, and personally, although the IOPC, the Independent Office of Police Conduct, are now carrying out an inquiry, that will obviously look across the board at the actions of the police officers. It won't look at the actions of the Crown Prosecution Service. It won't look at the actions of the court. But in my view, from a policing perspective, I know we've already had gross misconduct papers and misconduct papers served on a constable and a detective sergeant. But that needs to be across the board. Who signed off on those decisions that were made? Who signed off and supervised those issues of reduction of risk? Who decided that Simon Levy was suitable for 3 monthly visits when he trotted out this nonsense about staying in, watching Netflix and hardly ever going out when it was known that was not the case? How naive do you have to be to believe the lies of a manipulative, predatory, serial sex offender? It's incredible. And who signed off on these decisions to extend his bail for sexual offences as well? The murders of these two poor women, Mrs. Valencia Trujillo and Ms. Wilkins, actually happened after Levy had been identified, formally positively identified, on an identification parade with British Transport Police for some offences on the tube. Why on earth was he not brought straight into the station, charged and remanded in custody at that point? Women's lives could have been saved. Wow. Women could have been saved from serious sexual assault on the tube as well. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah,
and like yourself, Dawn, I am sick of hearing the excuses. I'm sick of hearing the police saying that they will be relentless in dealing with violence against women and girls, because the reality is different.
Cathy, I can hear the anger in your voice and I absolutely feel it. Thank you so much, and thank you for the work you do as Director of the Women's Rights Network as well. That is Cathy Larkman there, as I said, is Director of the Women's Rights Network and a former police superintendent. And you can hear the anger in her voice. Okay, we have some right replies to read. Lisa Ramsaran, the Chief Crown Prosecutor for the CPS, said, "Our actions fell short of the standards that victims, families and the public are entitled to expect. We recognise our responsibility and we are sorry for the shortcomings we have identified." Meanwhile, Crime and Policing Minister Sarah Jones said the fact that Levy was able to inflict such devastating harm after being freed by police and the courts is deeply concerning. It raises serious questions that require urgent answers. It is right that the IOPC are investigating how this happened, in addition to internal reviews by the organisations involved. Any failures must be identified and must not be repeated. OK, now, Andy Burnham, as we all know, is reconsidering the early release of PC Andrew Harper's killers, raising fresh questions about whether dangerous offenders are being kept off Britain's street. It's also worth pointing out that in the Levy case, he was released halfway through his sentence in 2023 and went on to murder those two women. So, let's talk to Olivia Utley, a GBNews political correspondent, about releasing dangerous offenders halfway through their sentence. It seems the irony of these two stories happening at the same time, Liv, is just, it's terrifying.
Well, absolutely. And I think the Levy case does put a lot of pressure on Andy Burnham to make a decision about this early release scheme. When he first became Prime Minister, he said that he was going to look at the early release scheme. We all thought that meant that he was going to scrap it altogether. Speaking to MOJ advisors this week, he clearly decided that that wouldn't be possible, or else risk serious overcrowding problems in prisons and the potential for total collapse as early as this autumn. And what he decided to do instead was scale back the early release scheme. That scaling back doesn't go very far. So those convicted of manslaughter, including the killers of PC Andrew Harper, are still eligible to be released halfway through their sentences. Now, there has been huge public outcry over specifically the killers of Andrew Harper being released early. And in response to that, Andy Burnham, who does have his finger on the pulse of the nation, it seems, is looking at ways to possibly make the killers of Andrew Harper exempt from early release. The problem is it isn't clear whether there is a way to do that within the law without opening the floodgates to every single person who's been convicted of manslaughter, getting their defence lawyers to argue that actually they should be released early as well. So he's got a really, really difficult decision on his hands. Once he starts carving out exemptions for specific people or carving out exemptions for specific crimes, then he could easily get into a situation where he's under so much political pressure that he has to scrap the early release scheme altogether. That might sound great to our viewers, and certainly I think lots of people would breathe a huge sigh of relief if these 5,000 people weren't to be let out in October at all. But of course, it does run the risk of prisons collapsing as early as October or November.
Olivia, yeah, there are no easy answers, but people are suffering. Olivia Utley, thank you so much for now. OK, and please do keep the messages coming in. Lots of you very upset about this story, as we all should be indeed. Do we ever get the answers, asks Annie. Annie, no, we don't. We get excuses and more women lose their lives. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. Yeah, as we speak, as I'm sitting here now talking to you, more migrant boats are crossing the Channel. Should Britain follow Sweden's lead? They've got an interesting solution and cut benefits and deport criminals to stop the boats coming. I'll be speaking to a Swedish journalist about what they are doing to solve the problem. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. I'll see you soon.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company this Saturday lunchtime. Now, as we are sitting here chatting, more small boats are heading across the Channel and heading to a house of multiple occupation or a hotel near you very soon. But Sweden seems to have sorted this problem out. Could they have the answer to our crisis? Swedish Migration Minister Johan Forsell says tougher rules have helped cut asylum claims by 75% since 2022. And he says Britain could do the same without leaving the ECHR. It comes as I've just said, hundreds of illegal immigrants crossed the Channel today after weather conditions improved overnight. Joining me now is investigative journalist at RIX, Christian Pedersen. Christian, thank you so much for joining me today. Very, very interesting article.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. Very, very interesting article. Sweden is expected to receive only 4,200 asylum seekers this year. Sounds a lot, but it's the lowest number since 1984. What have you done?
There's been a lot of carrots and sticks, and it wasn't achieved overnight, but through a series of reforms that changed both the incentives and enforcement. And today, as you said, we have one of the lowest number of asylum seekers in Europe. And many of these that you mentioned are, quote, refugees from the UN. One of the biggest reforms was when the ability to change migration track was removed. Before you could change your application from a asylum application to a work permit. So that's removed now. Also, there's a ability to remove residence permits and citizenship applications on moral grounds. So, for example, far-left activists who disturb university lectures, Islamists, people within criminal circles can be deported now without any criminal convictions. Previously, you needed like an aggravated crime for that. And today also prosecutors are forced to include the deportations on migrants who commit crimes. Before they could do that if they wanted to, it wasn't mandatory. And there's also been a lot of new laws on work permits. So you actually need to be qualified in order to stay in Sweden, and we're removing salary dumping. And a lot of Islamist preachers have been banned from Sweden. For example, the imam of the Iran-sponsored Imam Ali Center has been deported. And there's also going to be a welfare cap that will prevent people from combining different benefits in order to get a wage higher than a working person. So I've actually spoken with a lot of migrants who tell me that they're planning, or they have friends who have already gone to the UK now.
Gee, thanks, Christian. Yes, I was starting to like you before you said that bit. So, Christian, if a migrant, an illegal migrant, rocks up in Sweden, what do you do? I mean, I'm assuming he's not given. I'm saying he because most of them are young men. I'm assuming he is not put up in accommodation, given a hotel room, given a mobile phone, given spending money. None of that happens in Sweden anymore.
No, now there's like detention centers for them. And the migration agency is looking a lot on these fake asylum applications when they lie about their backstory. And the migration minister has also had meetings with the Syrian government in order to facilitate more deportations. And in this effort, even also the Sweden Democrats have been very active in these reforms. But all of this could change in only a month, because we have an election soon, and the left-wing opposition is demanding more asylum migration to Sweden. So we'll see what happens.
OK, and Christian, you have managed to do this without leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. In the United Kingdom, we have a huge problem with that, and with lawyers instantly going, no, we are going to appeal. We need our client to stay in the UK. How have you got around that?
I think it's about political will. It's just simple as that. Most people in Sweden, like if you look at opinion polls, they think that we have had too much migration. And you see that in the discussion in media and in the parliament, the overtone window on migration has changed a lot. There's a actually a lot of discussions right now about remigration and cutting citizenships for criminal migrants and so on. So we're far past that now in Sweden.
Well, congratulations on actually achieving what we find impossible. As you say, where there's a will, there's a way. We just don't seem to have the will. That's our investigative journalist at Riks, Christian Petersen. Thank you so much for joining us today, Christian. Very illuminating chat, apart from the fact Christian's pointed out many of the Swedish people that are migrants are now heading to the UK. Lovely. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. Oh, God, you won't believe this story. Anti-Israel and British songs, actually, have been reportedly taught at a pro-Palestine summer school in the UK, where kids were heard chanting, "We will have victory over Zionism." Can you believe this is actually going on in our countryside? But first, let's get the latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Thanks, Dawn. Good afternoon. Just after 1:30, the top story this lunchtime, Kemi Badenoch says the case of Simon Levy is symptomatic of the litany of failures in Britain's justice system. The Conservative leader described the convicted sex offender as a modern-day Jack the Ripper. He was found guilty of murdering 2 women, raping a third and sexually assaulting others on public transport. Investigators looking into the death of the former MP Anne Widdecombe have reopened a year-old probe into an alleged firebomb attack at Nigel Farage's home in London. Officers say a potential line of inquiry was missed at the time. The handling of the case has now been referred to the police watchdog. Hundreds of migrants are attempting to cross the English Channel this afternoon after calmer weather allowed people smugglers to launch boats for the first time in 5 days. One dinghy carrying more than 20 people made it close to the Kent coast before Border Force vessels intercepted it. Gianni Infantino's facing growing pressure today after claims his alleged lover was given a payout by UEFA while he was General Secretary. The FIFA president, though, strongly denies any allegations, calling them categorically untrue. UEFA, meanwhile, has confirmed a departure payment was made to the woman in question. And the UK is heading for what could be its 5th widespread heat wave of the year so far, with temperatures set to climb again this weekend. Yellow heat health alerts have been issued for most of England. Forecasters are warning parts of the southeast could exceed 30 degrees from Sunday and right into next week. I knew that was coming. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you shortly.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Outbreaks of rain will continue across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland today. Much drier for England and Wales. With rising temperatures, the next heat wave is on its way. Extensive cloud, however, as we start the weekend. The cloud across England and Wales will break, although 1 or 2 showers may pop up across parts of Wales and Western England. Nothing substantial, of course, as is the theme so far this summer, but the most persistent and at times heavy rain will be across the north and west of Scotland, Northern Ireland, where we don't need further rain. Feeling cool here with a blustery wind. Much warmer day to come for England and Wales compared with the week so far. This is the first day of what looks likely to be another fairly intense heat wave. Now, as we end the day on Saturday, plenty of sunshine for England and Wales. Temperatures still up into the mid or even high 20s during the evening. A very different story over the border into Scotland, Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud cover, outbreaks of rain, heavy and persistent at times. Although through the evening it will tend to break up, it will become more fragmented. It will sink a little into the northwest of England. The breeze will ease, just some showers for the far north and northwest of Scotland. Otherwise a little drier in northern areas by the end of the night. Now for England and Wales it stays clear through the night, but it's a warmer night compared with recent nights. Higher humidities, a little more comfortable for sleeping. And after a warm start to the day across the southern half of the UK, it's going to be another hot one. Hottest day we've had for a week or so. and temperatures rising quickly through the morning. Extensive sunshine across England and Wales, away from the far north of England, where there will be some cloud and patchy rain initially. And then the rain becomes more confined to central and southern Scotland. Showery stuff for Northern Ireland and far north. A keen breeze here, making it feel cool further south into the low 30s.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. We've got a bit of a shocker. Today is full of shocking stories, to be honest with you. This one is like, what on earth is going on? In any case, a pro-Palestinian organisation held a 4-day summer school for kids, little kids, in the Peak District. Sounds fine so far, doesn't it? The event, arranged by Palestinian Youth Movement Britain, was attended by more than 100 guests who recited anti-Israeli slogans in Arabic, which included the lyrics, "We will have victory over Zionism." Some experts have likened the gathering to a radicalisation camp, while others have pointed out that the political groups of all affiliations have away days. OK, but let's reverse this, shall we? Say this was a right-wing organisation and they were having a camp where they were talking about how they were going to deal with the immigration crisis in this country. You can imagine the headlines that would make, wouldn't you? Well, this hasn't got that much coverage, which is why we are doing it here on GB News. Joining me now is a former member of the Israeli Parliament and author, Dr. Einat Wilf. Mr. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me today. What do you make of this story? I found it absolutely shocking that little kids are being taught this stuff at a summer camp.
The only shocking thing is that this is happening in Britain, but this is happening on Israel's borders every day and for decades. It goes to the deep, I think, fissure between how people understand what the Palestinian cause is. In the West, people think that the Palestinian cause is a cause of freedom, dignity, statehood, and independence for the Palestine Arabs. But as the Palestine Arabs would themselves tell you and have said so over decades, just people did not give them the respect of taking them at their word, their cause is, as they say, victory over Zionism. That is to subdue the idea of Jewish independence. And this has been always and very much defines the cause of what I've come to call Palestinianism. Now, central to this cause is the indoctrination of people, of children from a young age, to believe that their lives would be best spent not in building something for themselves, but in devoting their lives to destroying what the Jews have built. And now you see it in Britain.
It is quite astonishing. I mean, the group that organised this as well as singing anti-Zionist songs, they were also singing pro-Arab songs and basically implying that Britain is heading to be an Arabic country. But after the October 7 massacre, obviously, which resulted in the horrific murder of 1,200 people, the group appeared to support that Hamas attack. It posted on X at the time, "When people are occupied, resistance is justified." And this is the group that's organising a summer camp for little kids.
Exactly, because Hamas was merely the executor of the deepest vision of what the Palestine cause is, which is this destruction of the Jewish state. You hear the word resistance in the West and you think, oh, resisting, occupiers or something. But one of the quotes I like to bring from the foreign minister Ernst Bevin in February 47, he says that the cause of the Arabs in the land, no one, of course, was called a Palestinian at the time. If anything, it was the Jews. He says that cause is to resist to the last the establishment of Jewish sovereignty in any part of the land. It is resistance, mukawama. The M in the word Hamas means resistance, mukawama. So the cause is the resistance. Again, Westerners think occupiers, okay, Israel being in the West Bank or Gaza. From the Palestine Arab vision, the resistance is against Jewish sovereignty in any part of the land. And resistance is violent. It's justified to be violent. And that's why there's no difference between Hamas and the cause of Palestine. Hamas merely executed the deepest Palestinian ethos, which is the destruction of the Jewish state.
So when these kids are singing songs about sort of like, destroying Zionism, Jewish people take that as anti-Semitism, don't they?
Of course, anti-Zionism is merely the updated, respectable mask for what became discredited anti-Semitism after World War II. It uses words like resistance, apartheid, racism, genocide. It uses, to its credit, a limited vocabulary of no more than 10 words. And everywhere you see those 10 words, they are equated with Zionism, with Israel. Sometimes they just draw a Star of David. You can see it on their placards in their anti-Zionist, anti-Israel demonstrations. And everywhere that this playbook has operated, from the Soviet Union to Eastern Europe to the Arab world to Iran, it ultimately led to the disappearance of Jews. Because this playbook works by initially saying, we love Jews, we have nothing against Jews, it's only against Zionists. And then they criminalize and demonize Zionism using those 10 words, this limited vocabulary. And once Zionism is fully criminalized, sometimes even legally, then they charge Jews with the crime of Zionism. And no Jew, however hard they try, will ever be able to repel the charge, because they were just at a wedding and they promised not to forget Zion, or they just celebrated Passover and spoke about next year in Jerusalem. And everywhere from the Arab world to Iran to the Soviet Union to the Eastern Europe, wherever anti-Zionism was allowed to become a dominant ideology, ultimately Jews had to flee.
It's frightening. This is going on in the British countryside. Thank you so much for joining us, Ina. That's Dr. Ina Wilf there, who's a former member of the Israeli Parliament and author. Thank you so much for joining us. And just one final shocking part on this story for you. The group that organised this summer camp for kids had a community football tournament for Palestine. Sounds OK, fine, fair enough. A photograph posted by the group showed 5 children with their backs to cameras. The only 2 children whose shirts displayed numbers wore the number 7 and 10. Now, it could have been just accidental, but is it a reference to the October 7 atrocities? I don't know. What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on that story. OK, now GB News has contacted Palestinian Youth Movement Britain for comment and have not received a response. However, a spokesperson for the Youth Hostel Association, where this was held, issued the following statement. YHA can confirm that this was a private group booking. YHA was not involved in organising, delivering or supervising the group's programme or activities. We are aware of the concerns raised regarding footage reportedly recorded during the group's stay. The views or activities of private groups using our facilities do not represent the YHA's views or values. OK, well, I want your views on that one. gbnews.com/your say. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. Good story for you. Happy story. The sights and sounds of the 1940s return to Kent this weekend as Spitfires, Hurricanes and Second World War veterans come together for the Battle of Britain air show. But before we go to that, if you are in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Another heatwave on the way for many parts of Europe, this time from France through Central Europe into Italy and some eastern parts of Europe. An extensive heatwave, temperatures into the high 30s, if not low 40s in places. Actually, Spain, not so hot, especially around the coast. More pleasant here, but it's going to be very hot through France with some thunderstorms developing. Italy, over the next few days, temperatures getting up to 40 Celsius in Rome.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Yes, the Malaysian government has announced that it will renew the search for Malaysia Airlines flight MH370, which disappeared 10 years ago without a trace.
Yes, the plane was carrying 239 people from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Previous attempts to locate the plane have all failed, leaving the families of those on board without any kind of closure.
Well, for more on this, let's speak to Terry Tozer, a former airline pilot and author of Confessions of an Airline Pilot, Why Planes Crash. Terry, you sound like the perfect man to talk to about this, because this is perhaps the biggest aviation mystery of our modern age.
Yeah, it is, and obviously a great tragedy as well. It's good to know that they're going to have another crack at trying to find it.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is just health and safety gone mad. It's not the role of public authorities to be telling people what's for their best interest. And the reality is, it's probably better to take the chance of a tree branch falling on you than going out in the sun and getting getting burnt in the sun. But the reality is, the reason why these councils are saying you've got to stay out of underneath the trees is they don't want anybody to get struck by a branch, which they have a liability to, whilst they don't have a liability for anybody getting sunburnt. So it's all to do with public liability. I mean, if you look at East Cheshire Council, for example, in 2024, they had to pay out £500,000 because a branch fell on somebody.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In my hand, I have the colander. I have a piece of paper. Yes, you have one too. So I'm going to run it so you can see me. So I think what you do is you shine, you indicate, you tell me what to do, and I'll do it for you.
You never look at the sun directly.
Yep,
you
good.
allow the light to go through the colander, and that'll actually act as a pinhole camera and project images of the sun onto the piece of paper, and then you can look at the piece of paper and see the eclipse take place. Simple as that. You can do it also by using binoculars or a telescope and projecting an image through from them onto a piece of paper.
Yep.
That will work just as well. Or get a bucket of water, let it settle, and look in the bucket of water, and you'll see the image of the sun in the water, and then you can observe the eclipse that way.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company. Now, it's been a bit of a hard show today. I get we're covering loads of tough stories, but today we have got a good story for you as well. The sights and sounds of the 1940s return to Kent this weekend as Dakotas, Hurricanes and Second World War veterans come together for the Battle of Britain Air Show, and it's a gorgeous day for it as well. GB News reporter Bethany Elsos joins us now live from the air show. Bethany, how's it going?
It's absolutely brilliant. I hope you can hear me over the sound of wonderful 40s era music and, of course, the planes flying overhead. As you said, we're here at RAF Woodchurch in Ashford in Kent for the Battle of Britain Air Show. Hundreds, if not thousands, of people have turned out here of all generations, young and old, and, of course, veterans too. And they're all here to see aircraft that played such a crucial part in the Battle of Britain, which led on to Britain defeating Germany in World War II. There's not just Spitfires. I feel like everyone talks about Spitfires and how iconic they are in Britain's war fleet, but there's also the Dakotas. Now, the owner of 2 Dakotas and several Spitfires is Keith Perkins, the owner of Aero Legends, who joins me now.
Oh, yeah.
How did you get into all of this, and how did you come about to own all of these planes?
Well, I guess it's a mad moment, really. I just decided I wanted a Spitfire, and that set me on the journey to get one. There were none for sale, so I had to buy a crash wreck and restore it. And then you realise that it's quite an addictive hobby, and the hobby got out of control. I had a flight in a C-47 Dakota down to Normandy. Always been interested in them, and really understood the importance they played in World War II, and fell in love with them, decided I wanted one, bought one, wanted another one.
Can you tell me about the role that the Spitfire and the Dakota played in the Battle of Britain and in World War II, and how important it is that generations learn about them and remember how crucial they were?
Yeah, so everybody knows about the Spitfire. It's famous for the Battle of Britain, but it's in production throughout the war. But the Dakota was one of the weapons that Eisenhower said was critical for winning the war. It's not as glamorous, but it's to me it's more special because you can share it with your friends, you can go places. We went to the Czech Republic in it the other year. You can take 29 people on board one of them. It's just a fabulous aircraft. And
the paratroopers will be jumping out of one of the Dakotas that are here today in a couple of hours' time. How easy is it to do that here in the UK?
Not so easy in the UK. I've done the course. I did my course in Holland because it wasn't easy here. But the UK teams have just reintroduced it. So the team that's jumping today is predominantly British.
Yeah.
It's done under an international team sort of oversight, but actually most of the jumpers are British.
How important do you think events like this are to keep history alive?
Really important. It never fails to amaze me how many people are interested in aviation. They think it's beyond their reach to get near it or touch it, and our job is to bring that opportunity to them. Hence the air show. Everyone can come and see the aircraft. We fly people in aircraft.
Keith, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Of course, we'll be speaking to veterans and also D-Day darlings throughout the day.
Thank you so much, Bethany. A great report. It looks wonderful, Diana. What an amazing day. Okay, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. All of that after the weather.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. The rest of Saturday promises to be fine and warm across most of England and Wales. There will be some cloud around but plenty of sunshine too. Further north and west though, it's been a much more unsettled day, and that's courtesy of this area of low pressure and this weather front that's edging its way southeastwards across the UK as we go into Sunday. But as I say, for most of England and Wales, bar the odd very isolated light shower that might just bring a dampening of the ground, it will be a dry evening and night, some clear spells around too, and not as chilly as last night. Temperatures generally holding up in the teens Celsius, particularly in our larger towns and cities. Having said that, further north and west though, it will be a much wetter night. So by the end of the night, this band of rain starting to work its way into parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for northern Scotland, particularly the Northern Isles, Shetland, Orkney and the Hebrides, a much brighter start to the day on Sunday compared to on Saturday. Not as windy as well, albeit still breezy with the odd shower. For Northern Ireland though, quite a damp day to come. The rain not necessarily persisting all day long, but there will be some spells of light to moderate rain. Most of England and Wales though, largely fine to begin the day on Sunday. A good deal of sunshine and just a bit of high-level cloud out and about. And here, temperatures will really rocket in that strong August sunshine through Sunday. So a hotter day to come compared to Saturday. Temperatures by the afternoon, well, widely in the high 20s and probably 30 to 32 Celsius in central, southern and southeastern parts of England. Further north, though, a fresher feeling day on Sunday. Quite a bit of cloud for northern England and Northern Ireland. A few showery outbreaks into the afternoon too. More comfortable temperatures here, 18 to 20 degrees, and still quite breezy in the north of Scotland with 1 or 2 showers. Through Sunday evening, the band of cloud and rain tends to peter out as it works its way a little bit further south into the Midlands. But by Monday, high pressure is once again building across many parts of the UK, bringing largely sunny conditions for Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures on the rise once again and reaching the mid-30s in places.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to Orla Santi by Domes Resorts, and there's just 2 weeks left to see how you too could be enjoying the 5-star lifestyle. First, you can bank an incredible £60,000. We'll also give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 8th of August, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you so much for your company today. Okay, a catalogue of failures across Britain's criminal justice system left a serial sex offender free to murder 2 women. Simon Levy's risk level was downgraded just 7 months before the first killing, despite his history of attacks on women. And 2 police officers are now under investigation following his conviction.
Simon Levy is a dangerous and predatory offender. His crimes were calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing.
Yes, and breaking news this afternoon, GB News can confirm that hundreds of migrants are attempting to cross the channel today as we speak, after calmer weather allowed people smugglers to launch boats for the first time in 5 days. At least 5 dinghies are understood to be heading towards British waters. And villagers are set to protest plans to house over 1,000 male migrants at a military site near Bicester today. But can they make their voices heard?
Well, in just over an hour, people will gather here in Bicester to protest against the use of the nearby army barracks to house up to 1,250 undocumented men. They will show exactly what that volume will look like in the small town of Piddington.
And we'll be speaking to a journalist who disputes claims made by leaders like Andy Burnham that 98% of the migrants who landed on the Spanish enclave of Ceuta have now left. And calls to nationalise Britain's railways after days of chaos for many of you. But will nationalisation actually fix the problem? And it's time for another heatwave. Well, it's called summer in my world, but any case, yeah, Britain's temperatures are set to hit 36 degrees next week, and health issues have naturally been issued. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for your company this afternoon. I appreciate it's a very busy time for many of you, but if you are out and about, please do remember we are on the radio as well. And indeed, talking of that, I wanted to say a big thank you to our radio listeners, because listening figures for most of GB News shows are up by, well, sometimes in 3 figures. This show is up by 75%, so thank you so much for listening if you are out and about on your radios, because we do this all for you, and we wouldn't be here without you. So we really do appreciate your company, and I certainly do at the weekend lunchtime. So please let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today at gbnews.com/your say, or scan the QR code. You can talk about any of the stories we're discussing. We obviously have the horror story about, once again, we're talking about a man freed to rape and murder women and girls, and also some of the fun stories we're discussing as well. We were talking about loos earlier on, weren't we, and why we're now having squat loos installed in some places in the United Kingdom, and lots of you are telling me your stories about squat loos, and it does get a bit messy, doesn't it? In any case, let me know your thoughts on all of those stories, and we can talk about the weather as well, because we are British and we do that a lot. All of that coming after your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon to you. Just after 2 o'clock, the top story. Kemi Badenoch says the case of Simon Levy is symptomatic of the litany of failures in Britain's criminal justice system. The Conservative leader described the convicted sex offender as a modern-day Jack the Ripper, who was repeatedly released and allowed to continue what she called a campaign of terror against women. Levy was found guilty at the Old Bailey of murdering Carmenza Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Wilkins, as well as rape and other serious offences. The Met, British Transport Police and the Crown Prosecution Service have all now admitted failings in the case. Well, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for the Met Police, Kevin Southworth, says the case is a collective failure of the system and a tragedy beyond words.
His behaviour is self-evidently that of a very prolific serial sexual predator who seeks his sexual gratification in a number of ways, whether it's opportunistically offending against strangers on the underground system, or whether it's targeting sex workers in the most horrific and harrowing fashion. So I think ultimately what we're talking about here is a serial sexual predator who's finally been brought to justice, but ultimately one too late to help the victims.
Investigators looking into the death of the former MP Anne Widdecombe have reopened a year-old probe into an alleged firebomb attack at Nigel Farage's home in London. Police say the incident involved a lit incendiary device being posted through the Reform UK leader's letterbox in April last year. The case was originally investigated as an attempted burglary, but was closed with no arrests. Officers now say a line of inquiry which may have been relevant was not identified or pursued at the time. The IOPC is now investigating the conduct of a counter-terror police staff member in London. Hundreds of migrants are attempting to cross the English Channel this afternoon after calmer weather's allowed people smugglers to launch boats for the first time in 5 days. At least 5 dinghies are understood to be heading towards British waters. One boat carrying 23 people got within a couple of miles of the Kent coast before Border Force vessels and a lifeboat intercepted it. If all boats make it across, today's crossings could take the total number of illegal arrivals this year so far past 14,500, with more crossings possible tomorrow. Spain has imposed border controls on all air and sea travel from Italy as a migration row between Madrid and Rome is intensifying. The checks come into force from midnight and are due to last for a month. Madrid says passengers arriving from Italy will face passport, nationality and visa checks because of persistent irregular migratory pressure. It comes after Italy imposed its own controls following the arrival of more than 70,000 migrants into Spain's enclave of Ceuta. But Rome says it will not accept ultimatums from Spain. In Scotland, a convicted child rapist has been caught after escaping from staff while on escorted leave. Cliff Lyons Dobby, who's a restricted patient, absconded from Perth city centre on Friday morning, triggering a police manhunt. Police Scotland confirmed this morning he had been apprehended. Dobby was convicted of raping a 10-year-old girl in Glasgow while on bail for sexually abusing a 12-year-old boy in 1990 and has been housed in secure units ever since. The Cambridge University is reviewing how it appoints senior academics after the resignation of Professor Jason Ardey in the middle of a plagiarism row. Professor Ardey, who became Cambridge's youngest black professor, has faced allegations of plagiarism and exaggerating parts of his CV. Claims, though, he denies. A group of academics is now calling for an independent inquiry, with one professor warning the university faces massive reputational damage. Cambridge says it is aware of public concern and will continue investigating the circumstances around his appointment. Gianni Infantino is facing fresh pressure today after claims his alleged lover was given a severance payment by UEFA while he was General Secretary. The Daily Telegraph reports the woman, who allegedly had a relationship with Infantino, received a six-figure sum during his time at European football's governing body. A spokesman for FIFA president says he strongly denies the allegations and called them categorically untrue. UEFA, though, says a departure payment was made, including funding for an MBA course, but insists payments were in line with regulations at the time. And the UK is heading for what could be its fifth widespread heatwave of the year, with temperatures set to climb yet again this weekend. Yellow heat health alerts have been issued for most of England until Tuesday, warning of pressure on health and social care services and an increase to vulnerable people. Temperatures could pass 30 degrees in the southeast from Sunday, with many areas expected to meet the threshold for an official heatwave. It comes after record-breaking temperatures this summer, with no significant rain in sight for England or Wales, which means drought conditions and hosepipe bans are unlikely to ease. Those are the latest headlines for now. No hosepipe for you, Dawn.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much, Sam, who seems to have a weird obsession with hose pipes today. I've got a balcony, so I don't need to worry about that. And I love the warm weather. OK, thank you so much for your company today. I'm sorry it's been a bit of a hard listen and a hard watch for some of you, because we are talking about the horrific story that's on the front page of many of your newspapers today. And I have to warn you that this segment contains distressing content. A serial sex offender has been found guilty of murdering 2 women and raping a third, leaving her for dead. After repeated failures left him free to offend. Simon Levy murdered Carmenza Valencia Trujillo in March 2025 and Cheryl Wilkins just 5 months later. His risk level was stunningly downgraded because of his poor eyesight, and that's despite a history of sexual offending going back to 2018. Detective Chief Inspector Neil John says Levy targeted vulnerable women in secluded areas of London.
Simon Levy is a dangerous and predatory offender. His crimes were calculated, cruel and deeply disturbing. Throughout the trial, he has shown complete disregard for the victims and victim survivor, despite being fully aware of the lasting and devastating impact of his actions.
Police now admit that Cheryl Wilkins' murder could have been prevented, with Scotland Yard, British Transport Police and the CPS apologising for what they call a collective system failure. Both of the women that were murdered were mums. They had little children who are now going to grow up without their mums. And once again, we've heard it all before, haven't we? I mean, Sarah Everard and Wayne Couzens, we heard lessons are going to be learned. We made mistakes, but it won't happen again. Once again, we are here, aren't we? So let's talk to Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones. Donna, A story I find we are talking about way too often these days about the rape and sexual abuse of women and girls in this country. This story is particularly horrific. It's left 2 women dead, a third traumatised for life, and God knows how many other victims who we are still waiting to come forward. But we know many being sexually assaulted on the tube, and all victims of this one incredibly sick man who was given bail to go out and carry on offending.
Dawn, I mean, I couldn't agree with you. We are talking about these cases all too often, and I agree with Kemi Badenoch's assessment of this today. We have got to change the way the criminal justice system, the way partners, health, councils, mental health services, the way that everyone is working together. You do get horrible people like this in society that will rape and murder people, and sometimes these offenders come out of nowhere. Agencies are not aware of them, but when they are aware of them, like in this case of Simon Levy, and therefore it could have been and should have been prevented, it really is unforgivable. Let's just have a look at the cacophony of issues. First of all, BTP, British Transport Police. You mentioned that Levy was on bail, and he was on bail for offending, sexually touching people inappropriately on tubes and trains across London. BTP was the appropriate police force. They were investigating it. Those investigations took far too long, which BTP have already put their hands up and admitted. And I know that this is all also subject to a independent police review, which will pick up and conclude these points. But we do know he was on bail for such a long period of time. He then offended whilst he was on bail. And when he went back before the courts then failed to remand him. I think from what I've been told as well, the Crown Prosecution Service did not manage to secure that remand in custody. So failings with the court system, failings with the Crown Prosecution Service, BTP on that long investigation, which should and could have got him locked up sooner, which would have prevented him, particularly with Cheryl, who he had murdered in the February 2025. That death particularly should and could have been avoided. And the Met, as I know, have already apologised for that. Their delay then on missing opportunities around that murder investigation. I think clearly with this person, there was a lot going on. He was originally, as you say, risked as a very, very high-risk sexual offender. He was on the sex offenders register. He committed offences whilst on bail. And yet agencies weren't working closely enough, delayed police investigations, CPS not really being on top of their brief as they should have been, meant this dangerous man was able to go on and kill women and also commit those rapes, which is just an absolute travesty.
Donna, yeah, we all know there are problems economically. We know that sort of like many of these agencies are short-staffed, etc., etc., etc. But how long can we carry on making these excuses? Meanwhile, women and girls are being raped and murdered, and we're just given excuses. I'm sorry, we made a mistake, it won't happen again. Women and girls are sick of hearing this. We need someone to actually do something. But do you have any confidence that that's going to happen?
You know, Dawn, that is the question, isn't it? Baroness Louise Casey did her review, post Wayne Couzens, post David Carrick. There have been some really great bits of policing professional practice put in place to mitigate around some of these risks. But has the same scrutiny been put on the Crown Prosecution Service, on other agencies within the wider CJ criminal justice system? I would argue not. The Independent Office of Police Complaints has got teeth. It's meaningful. Chief constables lose their jobs, police officers lose their jobs, detectives lose their jobs. If they get things wrong, they get sacked for gross misconduct. Crown Prosecution Service, when they're dropping the ball, when they're not securing those remands, when other agencies are not doing what they need to do, mental health services, for example, and I'm going to cast an aspersion here that Simon Levy had probably some quite complex mental health issues. I don't know that. I'm kind of surmising here the sort of case that Simon Levy is. So if you underfund the community and mental health services where you can put people away into secure units, if you don't have enough beds, if you don't have enough funding, if you've got prosecutors that are managing too many caseloads, guess what? Things fall between the crack. So in answer to your question, the way to stop this from repeatedly happening is to start funding the criminal justice system properly to get these dangerous people off our streets. And let's be honest, we've got thousands, hundreds of thousands or more people living in this country now, come here illegally, and we don't know their backgrounds, we don't know their risk profiles, but what we do know is that some of them are committing offences very similar to what Simon Levy did.
Yeah. And we do know, Donna, that they are coming from cultures that are incredibly misogynistic, and that's putting it politely, where women can't say no. They are just literally owned by their men. Rape is not, it doesn't exist. It's just sex as far as these men are concerned. It's terrifying.
It really is terrifying, Dawn. And I've been on this show many times with Martin, with Patrick, talking about these exact issues. You know, as a country, one of the key things at the moment for Andy Burnham, and I know we've had this focus on the early prison release over the last week, particularly with Lizzie Harper and what happened with PC Andrew Harper. It's very sad. And that has quite rightly had some national focus this week. But, you know, the government have got to really look at this. If you are releasing people early, you need to realise two things. One, their punishment then isn't as impactful. But two, you are increasing the risk of the community they're going back into. And the reason that we send people to prison in this country, it's not just about punishment. Sometimes it's also for the community protection of the public. You know, and when you think about the David Gauke review, Kemi mentions the David Gauke review today. Don't send them to prison, more community rehabilitation. For some lower type offences, I would agree with that. Actually locking them up, it's not the best use of public money. But for people that commit medium and high risk offending, particularly rapes, murders, sexual assaults, unless these people have really demonstrated to the parole board that they are not a risk anymore or a significantly reduced risk, they should be in prison. This whole buying, I don't buy into this less prison spaces, more community rehabilitation. What I'm not seeing as a police and crime commissioner who has a legal remit over the governance of the criminal justice system in my area, which is 2.2 million people in this country, what I'm not seeing is the investment coming into probation, is all of these hundreds more places into rehabilitation programs for sex offenders or for people that are, you know, prolific heroin addicts. I'm not seeing them front loading it. So if they're stopping sending people to prison, what are they doing with them to manage that risk in the community? You can't have your cake and eat it. We need more prisons. They do actually work if they are managed right. They do work, and that I'm sorry, I'm not with Andy Burnham. I was going to say Keir Starmer then. I'm not with Andy Burnham and the Labour government on this one. I think early release from prison is sending the wrong message.
Donna, thank you so much. You can hear once again with every woman I've spoken to on this subject the passion in your voice. That's Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones there. It's just the most horrific story. So that's why I wanted to say this. If you have been affected by anything discussed in the show today, the Rape Crisis England and Wales support line is indeed open 24 hours a day, every day of the year. You can ring 0808 500 2222 for free. I'll give you that number again. It's 0808 500 2222 for free, and they will listen and they will support you. You're not alone dealing with this problem. You can also visit their website and start a free online chat. OK, right, replies on this story. Lisa Ramsaran, the Chief Crown Prosecutor for the CPS, has said, our actions fell short of the standards that victims, families and the public are entitled to expect. We recognise our responsibility and we are sorry for the shortcomings we have identified. Meanwhile, Crime and Policing Minister Sarah Jones said the fact that Levy was able to inflict such devastating harm after being freed by police and the courts is deeply concerning. It raises serious questions that require urgent answers. It is right that the IOPC are investigating how this happened, in addition to internal reviews by the organisations involved. Any failures must be identified and must not be repeated. 2 women are dead. 2 little kids are growing up without a mum. OK, let's move on, shall we? Residents in Bicester are protesting plans to house 1,250 young male asylum seekers at a nearby former military site today. It comes as hundreds of illegal migrants, mostly men, are crossing Minks Channel today after weather conditions improved all night. I'm just going to go and lie in the dark corner with this, honestly. Let's cross live to Bicester, where GB News reporter Isabel Fekulak joins us now. Isabel, what's happening there today?
Yes, good afternoon, Dawn. I'm here in Bicester, and in just under an hour, this field where I'm stood, you can see some people gathered here behind me. There'll be over 1,000 people, though, here protesting against the use of that army barracks, MOD Bicester, to house up to 1,250 male asylum seekers, undocumented men. Of course, that backs onto Piddington, a very small village. It's got just around 300 residents, no police station, no shop. So people from that village worried about the impact it will have on their livelihoods. But it will be people from surrounding areas, like here in Bicester, that are gathering today, also in protest against that. In fact, we're going to hope to see around 1,250 of them to demonstrate the sheer volume of men that will be in this community. And I'm joined now by Paula, who is a resident from Bicester, also who's been part of the organisation of this protest today. Paula, tell me, what are the main messages you guys want to get across today?
Just that we're really concerned. One, we haven't been informed by the government or Home Office about it actually happening. We found out online. They've got no sort of infrastructure is terrible to the site, so there's nothing to get them to and from. We have been told that they would be brought in by buses into Bicester, which again is concerning for the safety of its residents, mainly women and children. We've seen what's been happening all over the country where they've been housed, so we're concerned and we're worried and scared.
Now, the government say that this use of the military sites is in an attempt to stop using the expensive asylum hotels, to crack down on that. They've promised the public that they would save the taxpayer money on that. What do you make of that?
It's rubbish. The site that they intend to put them on, there's no accommodation up there. It was just a storage site for the MOD. So they're going to have to obviously fund the accommodation for them to live. We've then heard that they're going to be knocking down the hangars that are there, so again that's going to cost a lot of money. There's no sort of drainage system up there, so it's still going to cost the taxpayer a stupid amount of money.
And what are we expecting to see today? I know I've said that there's going to be hopefully 1,250 people to show the volume. What are we looking at?
Hopefully we get that many. I don't think we will, but hopefully we will. It's just to show sort of the people that we're only. It's not a massive town. This is not huge, so that impact of that many men, undocumented men, just to come and go whenever they please, because they've got no curfew. They can leave 24/7 and come into the town, just to show people that that's what it's going to look like if they all decided to leave at one time and come into the town centre. It's very, it's scary to think about that.
And I know in places like Crowborough, they've been protesting week in, week out. If you guys do the same, hopefully you'll have your voices heard. Just quickly in a sentence, what is one sentence you'd like them to hear?
They just need to start listening to the, not just us here in Bicester or Crowborough or anywhere else. The whole of the UK doesn't want this. We want to feel safe.
Thank you so much for coming on. We'll be here, we'll be taking in the protest, we'll be chatting to lots of people about why it is that they feel the need to take to the streets of Bicester today to protest against the use of that site. Of course, the Home Office saying that it will stop the use of asylum hotels, but people here just hoping for their voices to be heard today.
Well, hopefully we can give them some voice on GBNews. Thank you so much, Isabel Fekulek there. We will be going back to Isabel as that protest continues throughout the afternoon. I'm Dawn Neeson with GBNews. There's lots more coming up on today's show. We'll be speaking to a journalist next who disputes the claims made by leaders like Andy Burnham that 98% of migrants who landed on the Spanish enclave of Ceuta have now left. I wonder what's going on there. All of that and much more to come. This is GBNews at Britain's News Channel. I'll see you very soon.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn and Easam. Thank you so much for your company. Now, you don't want to miss what we're talking about next. It's going to make you absolutely furious because it has me. Politicians have reassured us that 98% of the migrants who entered the Spanish enclave of Ceuta have now left. Have they? Thousands are actually reported to remain there, with many sleeping rough and hoping to travel onwards, including to the United Kingdom. It comes as concerns grow that Ceuta could become a new gateway for migration into Europe. Yeah, it is actually. So there's a brilliant report in the Daily Mail today, written by the wonderful columnist Sue Reed, who now thankfully joins me in the studio. Sue, you've been to Ceuta, and you've actually witnessed on the ground what's happening. But we're being told by our new Prime Minister that the crisis is over. Nothing to see here. What's going on?
Well, I was very astonished by what Mr Burnham had to say. He was at the White Cliffs of Dover, assuring us all was well about our borders. And he was asked about its enclave, the Spanish enclave, which had just been besieged by 60,000 young men. Most of them are young men. There are some young girls, but very few, and many of them children. And he said that he'd heard from the Spanish Prime Minister, he boasted really, that he was in touch with Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, and that he'd told him that 98% of all the 60,000 who had arrived 10 days ago had departed. Well, some have departed, but if you say 98% of 60,000, if my maths and social media maths are right, that means there are only 1,200 left on the island. Well, I can assure you that we're talking about thousands that are on this island, enclave.
Yeah.
And if you go up the hill to the migrant accommodation, which has always been there, and has accommodation for, say, 200 people, they are, or 500 people, they're overflowing. There are 2,000 people sleeping rough around that. So that's 2,000 plus 900. They put tents up in the grounds of the migrant. So we're talking about 3,000 just in that one small area. Anywhere you go on this island, on this enclave, including particularly the industrial estate, you know, where they're repairing tyres, that kind of light industry. Everything is shut there because it's been taken over by young migrants who are living in absolutely gross conditions, and they make little camps, camps out of bedsteads they found and bathtubs with sheets over, and they're lying in there. We're talking about boys of 13 and 14. And this is going on street after street after street. That's just the industrial estate. Then you go on to the beach. Well, I saw the Red Cross arrive. I think I was the first person to see this, because the rest of a lot of the media went away again, you see, believing that they were going.
Believing what
that the people were going, it was all over.
Yeah.
So there were a few European television crews there, but that was it. And then suddenly at 5:30 on Wednesday evening, onto this beach, waiting were 2,000 people, we estimated. Came the Red Cross. And there were so many that the police had to marshal them and tell them to sit down. And they were sitting in long lines with the police mask, because these guys are coming in, we were told, with hepatitis, HIV, TB. Ambulances were turning up if anyone was thought suspected of having those infections, and taking them to the already overwhelmed hospital. But the number, everywhere you went, and those are just two places I've mentioned, there are hundreds and hundreds of young male migrants. OK, I met at every petrol station. They're waiting to beg now. At every supermarket, they're guarded. The supermarkets are now guarded in the main strip, the main town. Not only by the army, but actually by the equivalent of the absolute top Spanish, guards, intelligence.
I mean, Sue, you interviewed a few, and many of them with criminal convictions, which they quite happily boast about. How determined are they to get to the UK?
Well, the person you were talking about then, I think, is a potential trafficker. He's a guy who came in a lorry to Britain, lived off the Edgware Road with a foster parent.
Right.
Came in as a child. And left again when he was 20, because they were chasing him. He'd come out of prison, double GBH, and for deportation. So he went back to Morocco. Perfect English, of course. He's got estuary English.
Yeah.
And he's now trying to come in. If we open the doors, if the doors are opened, is hoping to come in to renew his life in Britain. So that's one criminal I know. The Spanish have said that they've already found ISIS people among them.
Really?
Because obviously it's among 60,000, it'd be very unlikely you didn't find an ISIS person, to be honest.
Because, I mean, this is not just Morocco they're coming from sub-Saharan Africa as well.
And that was overlooked at the beginning. I easily found Sudanese, who I know quite well from Calais. Senegalese were playing they're brilliant at football as a nation. Well, now I know why. Because they were just on the main beach, they were playing football all the time.
And Sue, the shocking thing is here that our politicians in Spain and in our own Prime Minister are reassuring us. There's nothing to see here, nothing to worry about. That's not what you found.
It's insulting, actually, isn't it? I mean, it's not only insulting to journalists, who they hope will believe it and get on the next ferry home, but it's and never come back again. But it's insulting, actually, to the European people and the British and anyone who may receive these kids in the future, because, believe me, I'm absolutely certain that they will be taken off that enclave. They are absolutely determined not to go back. I did not meet one kid there, and by kid I mean from 13, some were 20, say, but young, just into...
Young
teenagers, really. Yeah. Teenagers down to young ones. And when you ask them, are you going back? No, we are not. And they've been sent by their parents in some cases to get a better life, you see.
Sue, we have to leave it there, unfortunately. I could talk to you forever. And we do know that there's another invasion, and I am going to use that word because that's what it is, planned for the 15th of August. More people are determined to come over there. Sue, thank you so much. That's the brilliant Daily Mail columnist Sue Reed there, who has been to Ceuta and investigated this. And basically, don't believe what you're being told by the politicians. OK, there's lots more coming up on today's show. Calls to nationalise Britain's railways after days of chaos for travellers. But will nationalisation actually fix the problem? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. I'll see you very soon.
Hello again and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. The rest of Saturday promises to be fine and warm across most of England and Wales. There will be some cloud around but plenty of sunshine too. Further north and west though, it's been a much more unsettled day, and that's courtesy of this area of low pressure and this weather front that's edging its way southeastwards across the UK as we go into Sunday. But as I say, for most of England and Wales, bar the odd very isolated light shower that might just bring a dampening of the ground, it will be a dry evening and night, some clear spells around too, and not as chilly as last night. Temperatures generally holding up in the teens Celsius, particularly in our larger towns and cities. Having said that, further north and west though, it will be a much wetter night. So by the end of the night, this band of rain starting to work its way into parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for northern Scotland, particularly the Northern Isles, Shetland, Orkney and the Hebrides, a much brighter start to the day on Sunday compared to on Saturday. Not as windy as well, albeit still breezy with the odd shower. For Northern Ireland though, quite a damp day to come. The rain not necessarily persisting all day long, but there will be some spells of light to moderate rain. Most of England and Wales though, largely fine to begin the day on Sunday. A good deal of sunshine and just a bit of high-level cloud out and about. And here, temperatures will really rocket in that strong August sunshine through Sunday. So a hotter day to come compared to Saturday. Temperatures by the afternoon, well, widely in the high 20s and probably 30 to 32 Celsius in central, southern and southeastern parts of England. Further north, though, a fresher feeling day on Sunday. Quite a bit of cloud for northern England and Northern Ireland. A few showery outbreaks into the afternoon too. More comfortable temperatures here, 18 to 20 degrees, and still quite breezy in the north of Scotland with 1 or 2 showers. Through Sunday evening, the band of cloud and rain tends to peter out as it works its way a little bit further south into the Midlands. But by Monday, high pressure is once again building across many parts of the UK, bringing largely sunny conditions for Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures on the rise once again and reaching the mid-30s in places.
5 hosts,
5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your comments about Sue Reed's piece about what's actually going on with the migrant crisis in Ceuta. It is absolutely indeed frightening. OK, but we are moving on. Talking of chaos, we're talking travel chaos, because it's been another week of chaos on British Railway, hasn't it? Could things be about to improve, though? The launch of the newly nationalised Great British Railway is coming up, and some are claiming that by unifying Britain's disparate rail system, we can reduce all the chaos. But are they right on that? Well, we have the perfect person to ask in the studio with me now, travel correspondent at The Telegraph, the wonderful Simon Calder, who, by the way, cycles everywhere, so he doesn't actually get on trains, and I don't blame him at all. That's not true, by the way. Simon, nationalisation will do nothing to fix Britain's malfunctioning rail networks is a headline on your piece in The Telegraph today.
Yes.
We're doomed.
I very much hope I'm wrong. I very much hope that the ministers, the railway figures who are saying, yep, we've got it all wrong for the past, 30 years now. And by bringing back together, which you could call kind of British Rail, we think things will get better.
Yes.
And I hope it does. And there is potentially some advantage to be had, but the fundamental
There's always a but.
Well, they remain. So, for example, on Thursday, hundreds of thousands of people in northwest England had their journeys just wiped out because there was a power failure at a Network Rail signalling centre in Manchester, and well, there wasn't really a backup for 90 seconds, and everything stopped where it was, and it was just miserable. Hundreds of trains cancelled, and immense misery for everybody. Moving on to this weekend. So today, well, you might want to go from London to Leicester, Nottingham, Derby, Sheffield. But unfortunately, there's a strike involving members of the RMT union because they are unhappy about the new trains that have been brought in on that line. So East Midlands Railway are running trains only between 7 in the morning and 7 in the evening, and a lot fewer than normal. And at the same time, well, you think, oh, well, I'll use Avanti West Coast. No, they put out a message saying, OK, this weekend, unfortunately, due to staff shortage, we will be making some short notice cancellations. And look, to Monday, we get the result of the ballot from the ASLEF union, train drivers on Avanti West Coast. And then on Wednesday, it's the term train drivers on LNER, on the East Coast main line. These are both disputes about pay. And you might have thought, oh, I thought we got rid of those a couple of years ago. No, they are back. And that is leaving aside all the monumental pressures that mean that, for example, an awful lot of people on the railway, and good luck to them, they work hard, but a lot of them, they don't have to work on Sundays if they don't want to, which is kind of, if you're trying to run a 7-day-a-week railway, that's a bit inconvenient, but nobody has grasped that, not least because the first thing the unions will say, of course, we're very happy to work on Sundays, but we're going to need X% on top of our wages. And the Treasury are going to say, well, you can't have it. These things are horribly structural, and I fear that a lot of people will be pinning too much hope on nationalisation.
To solve all of that, it sounds like it would be a miracle if it did indeed happen. Talking of train journeys, this one, speaking of someone that might need to go to the loo at this very moment in time, this sounds absolute torture. A 6-hour train journey between London and Stirling with no toilets?
Well, this is on a Lumo train. It's actually only 5.5 hours, but I can take your point.
Oh, fine, Simon, thanks.
OK, in fact, it turned out to be quite a lot longer, but that was because, OK, so we're talking here about Lumo, which is a really good enterprise. It's a so-called open access operator, and it just said, we want to run trains in competition with Avanti West Coast, and we want to go up the West Coast main line and end up in beautiful Stirling. And they're doing that.
Lovely.
But unfortunately, the refurbished trains that they're using have quite a lot of faults in the plumbing department, and that has meant that we've seen trains this week running without any loos on board that are working. And so what they've been doing is stopping. You stop in Nuneaton, OK? It's not supposed to stop in Nuneaton, but you stop there to let everybody out.
So everyone gets off the train, runs to the loos.
That adds about 15 minutes to the journey. Then you stop again in Preston, because, I mean, that's a good couple of hours on. And then finally, by this stage, you're running so late that it has to get to Motherwell in Scotland, and then it just gives up. But look, I'd say bit of credit to them for running the thing. It's better than cancelling the whole train, and they do say that they are trying to get it all fixed.
Well, let's hope they do so. There's a lot of cross legs going on there, but you could always fly somewhere maybe and escape, especially not from Bristol maybe.
Bristol. What
right.
a misery! So the runway, there was runways are regularly checked. OK, of course they are, because it's safety critical. So at 6 o'clock last night, Bristol Airport discovered a fault on the runway, presumably some sort of hole that they had to fill in.
Potholes.
It took until 8 o'clock this morning. I have been counting up. There were 24 diversions. You're talking about 4,000 people at least being on those flights.
Ouch.
Imagine you've been in beautiful Cape Verde. You're coming back to Bristol, and the captain says, oh, yeah, Bristol's closed. We're going to Liverpool.
It's just down the road. You can get a train. Oh, no, you can't.
And this is midnight that people are getting in. It was just awful. People ending up in Manchester, in Southend, in Gatwick, in Luton, in Birmingham. And then, of course, massive cancellations. I'm up to over 50 cancellations now. That, very sadly, is going to affect about 7,000 or 8,000 people. Look, the good news is, if you were sitting around at Bristol Airport ready for your 7:15 EasyJet flight to Larnaca, so that's 7 hours ago, it's just left. I hope that everybody has a lovely holiday there.
Ouch.
And of course, every single one of these planes, there's a plane load of people waiting at the other end as well to come back.
The knock-on effect.
Of the things that can go wrong with travel. But it's still great most of the time. It's the industry of human happiness.
It is, absolutely.
Yes.
Simon, thank you so much. And there's a reason that Simon Calvert, who is wonderful and brilliant at his job, actually cycles most places. Simon, always good to see you. Thank you so much. Even though there was always a but with Simon's stories. But that is the travel correspondent at The Telegraph, the wonderful Simon Calder there for you. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. And yet, phew, what a scorcher, as someone once said. It's time for another heatwave. Britain's temperatures are set to hit 36 degrees next week, and health warnings, yes, have already been issued. But if you are in search of some holiday sun elsewhere, good luck getting there, as Simon would point out. Here's the forecast for those top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Another heatwave on the way for many parts of Europe, this time from France through Central Europe into Italy and some eastern parts of Europe. An extensive heatwave, temperatures into the high 30s, if not low 40s in places. Actually, Spain, not so hot, especially around the coast. More pleasant here, but it's going to be very hot through France with some thunderstorms developing. Italy, over the next few days, temperatures getting up to 40 Celsius in Rome.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
4 heat waves, weeks without meaningful rain. As the UK heads towards one of its hottest summers on record, the pressure is showing here in Sussex, in the fruit growing across these fields. Well, the impact of the heat is already visible here. This local grower says that if these extreme temperatures continue, this year's harvest may well be smaller in size.
I don't think there's been another period like this in the history. 3 years ago, we had a tremendous heat wave in the middle of harvest. We were unable to get the fruit to cool down quickly enough. The following year we had a very, very light crop, and the same again this year.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's only all-female chess team, called She Plays to Win, has been promoted to the game's top division, only to be told they must recruit a male player to compete. Now, league rules require every First Division team to include at least one male and one female player, meaning that one of the team's female players could lose her place. I'm joined in the studio by the She Plays to Win chess players, Anusha and Alicia. Great to see you both this afternoon.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry about what's going on. You've been promoted, but you might have to lose one of your teammates. What's going on here?
So essentially, we have fallen victim to this rule that She Plays to Win, our team, has been promoted to the First Division in our league, but now must have a male player as part of the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, that drought is due to long periods, record periods actually, with no rainfall and high temperatures. The areas that are affected, as you say, over half of England, half of the UK affected by that. The areas being East Anglia, Hertfordshire, the whole of London, Thames Valley, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Devon and Cornwall, the West Midlands and Wessex, covering Dorset, Somerset, Wiltshire and Gloucestershire. So a huge area impacted by that drought. There is also that amber heat health alert still in place here. That's in place until tomorrow. And temperatures today in the south could reach up to 35 degrees. So people here in Bognor Regis coming to the coast to cool down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company. I can only apologise for not reading as many of your messages out, but the message board has been crazy today. It really has. So many of you getting in touch about the stories we're covering, because obviously we are covering the right stories for you. So thank you so much for that. OK, now we are going to talk about the weather, because we're British and this is exactly what we do in this country. Yet another week, another heat wave. Britain is bracing for yet more scorching temperatures, with predictions that temperatures could hit 36 degrees again next week. Now, the Met Office has done what they always do at the moment and issued a yellow heat warning in response. So, how much of a scorcher is it going to be? Well, let's talk to the font of all knowledge on this one, meteorologist John Ketley. Mr. Ketley, very good to see you. Spoiling me today. I've had Simon Calder and now I've got you. John, another heat wave, or is it just a part of a lovely summer?
Yes, here we go again, Dawn. It really is part of an exceptional summer. I've got to say, it has gone on ever since the middle of May, hasn't it? Really, something like that across England and Wales in particular. It's the southern half of Britain, but we've had several of these chats, haven't we, over the past few months? And every time I've had to say the same thing. It's not the same everywhere, is it? Because it keeps on raining over Scotland, and it's absolutely pouring down again today in the northwest of Scotland. So everywhere north of, say, Glasgow, there's more rain to come. And it must be very frustrating for everybody watching and listening when they hear about these heat waves all the time. But certainly, yes, it is coming back. It's going to be coming and going in a sense. The temperatures are going to be fluctuating quite a bit to begin the coming week. It looks like Wednesday and Thursday we will see the highest temperatures, and you've mentioned 36, and I think that could be fairly modest. We could see 38 in some central and southern parts of England next week, in the middle of the week. But at the same time, we are going to see a surge of this hotter weather moving into Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. So good news, at least briefly, 36 hours or so. We could see temperatures up at 26 degrees even in the north of Scotland for a while, Wednesday into Thursday.
Oh, I'm loving it, to be honest with you, John, no lie. And just very, very quickly, we've got a solar eclipse coming up next week, haven't we?
Apparently we do. It won't change the weather, don't worry.
Oh, honestly, there's always a but with yous, lot, isn't there? John, thank you so much. That's meteorologist John Ketley there on the few watt scorcher. OK, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Thank you so much for watching. Don't go anywhere. I'm back for lunch tomorrow. But before that, you've got Nana Queer with a great show.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. The rest of Saturday promises to be fine and warm across most of England and Wales. There will be some cloud around but plenty of sunshine too. Further north and west though, it's been a much more unsettled day, and that's courtesy of this area of low pressure and this weather front that's edging its way southeastwards across the UK as we go into Sunday. But as I say, for most of England and Wales, bar the odd very isolated light shower that might just bring a dampening of the ground, it will be a dry evening and night, some clear spells around too, and not as chilly as last night. Temperatures generally holding up in the teens Celsius, particularly in our larger towns and cities. Having said that, further north and west though, it will be a much wetter night. So by the end of the night, this band of rain starting to work its way into parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland. But for northern Scotland, particularly the Northern Isles, Shetland, Orkney and the Hebrides, a much brighter start to the day on Sunday compared to on Saturday. Not as windy as well, albeit still breezy with the odd shower. For Northern Ireland, though, quite a damp day to come. The rain not necessarily persisting all day long, but there will be some spells of light to moderate rain. Most of England and Wales, though, largely fine to begin the day on Sunday. A good deal of sunshine and just a bit of high-level cloud out and about. And here, temperatures will really rocket in that strong August sunshine through Sunday. So a hotter day to come compared to Saturday. Temperatures by the afternoon, well, widely in the high 20s and probably 30 to 32 Celsius in central, southern and southeastern parts of England. Further north, though, a fresher feeling day on Sunday. Quite a bit of cloud for northern England and Northern Ireland. A few showery outbreaks into the afternoon too. More comfortable temperatures here, 18 to 20 degrees, and still quite breezy in the north of Scotland with 1 or 2 showers. Through Sunday evening, the band of cloud and rain tends to peter out as it works its way a little bit further south into the Midlands. But by Monday, high pressure is once again building across many parts of the UK, bringing largely sunny conditions for Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures on the rise once again and reaching the mid-30s in places.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome to Orlis Santee by Domes Resorts, and there's just 2 weeks left to see how you too could be enjoying the 5-star lifestyle. First, you can bank an incredible £60,000. We'll also give you a fine gold bullion bar worth over £5,000.
For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From Court Morning